Chapter 2479. Yan Danqing. It was the same Yan Danqing that Qin Nan had stumbled into in the immortal palace of the 9 paths of the true dragon. However, unlike the first time Qin Nan had met him, Yan Danqing did not have any expression on his face. He did not even try to conceal the pride that came from his bones. Qin Nan could easily see it with a single glance. What's going on? Why would I stumble into Yan Danqing in the spacetime light? Could it be that I've crossed paths with Yan Danqing in the spacetime light, and that's why he treated me like that when I stumbled into him in the immortal palace? Several thoughts flashed across Qin Nan's mind. However, he immediately rejected them. Wu Di had mentioned that the spacetime light was similar to the memory of the Master of the Blue Dome. Even though everyone in it was real, they were merely illusions, just like an illusion. Yan Danqing seemed to have sensed something. He glanced at Qin Nan. Bang! A murderous aura surged in Qin Nan's direction like an ancient river. Qin Nan immediately reacted. His eyes flickered as he nullified the murderous aura. You've been staring at me for more than 3 breaths. I should have crippled you, but since you managed to resist my murderous aura, it means you're not bad. I won't hold it against you. Yan Danqing's calm voice entered Qin Nan's divine sense. Meanwhile, a few groans were heard. It was obvious that some of the cultivators had been staring at Yan Danqing's face for more than 3 breaths, thus they were affected by Yan Danqing's murderous aura. The 4 Qilins let out deep roars and pulled the carriage forward. They soon disappeared from Qin Nan's sight. This Yan Danqing is so arrogant? Qin Nan wore a strange look. He was having a hard time comparing the Yan Danqing before him with the Yan Danqing who had clumsily fought him in the immortal palace. If it weren't for the fact that the two of them looked exactly the same, he definitely wouldn't have believed it. He's too arrogant. I only took a few glances at him, yet he's already attacking my mind with his murderous aura. They naturally have the ability to be arrogant. Do you know who this person is? His name is Yan Danqing, and he's an inner disciple of a top force. He's also on the Myriad Worlds list. What? Just Empyrean Realm and he could get his name on the list? He's a top-notch genius. List of Myriad Worlds? His name was on the list? Qin Nan raised his eyebrows. He suppressed the other thoughts in his heart and continued to listen to the various voices in the restaurant. For Qin Nan, the thing that interested him the most in this strange universe was the level of the martial arts strength of this universe. Old Man Zhuxian and Old Ancestor Yukong had revealed a few words about the Emperor and the Great Emperor. What realm were the 10 immortal emperors of the Yen Tian sect at? To Qin Nan's delight, someone in the restaurant brought up this topic. However, Qin Nan soon discovered that every time they mentioned the realm of the Supreme Celestial Venerate, their voices would disappear into thin air, as if they had been erased. Not long after, the spirit of the Celestial Pole list transmitted their thoughts to him. They had also encountered the same problem. I didn't expect the space-time power to even obstruct this. Qin Nan shook his head and had no choice but to give up. Whether it was now or in the future, he was still a little far away from the Myriad World. However, Qin Nan still gained a lot. In addition to learning the names of some of the top forces, he also learned about the list of Myriad World. The list of Myriad Worlds was similar to the Celestial Pole list. It was open to all the cultivators in the Myriad World. As long as one was under 500 years old and was a Supreme Celestial Venerate or below, they would have a chance to be on the list. The only difference was that the list of Myriad Worlds did not have a ranking. Just like Yan Danqing, who could be on the list at the Celestial Venerate realm, he was commonly known as a person on the list. To be able to do this, one would be a top genius in the eyes of ordinary people. After the spirit of the Celestial Pole list quickly learned about the existence of the list of Myriad Worlds, it was obviously very excited. It immediately sent a voice transmission to Qin Nan and the others, asking them to try their best to understand more about the list of myriad worlds if they had the chance. The number one person in the Great Upper Realm obviously wanted to learn more from the list of myriad worlds and understand the various rules of the list of myriad worlds to see if they could be used in the Great Upper Realm. If we continue to stay here, we won't be able to get any useful information. Qin Nan shook his head and got up to leave the restaurant. He had basically understood everything that he needed to know. What he needed to do now was to find the young Blue Dome Master. Since he loves money and swords, if he's in Sword Xuandu, then he'll definitely go to these streets. Qin Nan recalled the characteristics of the various streets in Sword Xuandu. After locking onto a few of them, he went deep into them. Looking for someone was undoubtedly a very painful thing, not to mention not having an exact location and being in a vast sea of people. Unknowingly, 10 hours had passed, and Qin Nan had finished looking through the few streets. Qin Nan did not leave, but made up his mind to search again. This was because he didn't know if the Azure Sky Lord would enter a certain street right after he finished searching. Dao. Of course, Qin Nan only planned to search a second time at most. If not, he could only change to an immortal city. Around 8 hours later, as Qin Nan's heart gradually sank, he suddenly heard a voice coming from a stall in front of him. "Hey, mister, please do me a favor, will you? This sword and I hit it off at first sight, it might even be my why, don't you just sell me an immortal essence for the reincarnation of your partner?" The street was full of voices, yet Qin Nan would still take a quick glance at them whenever he heard someone asking for a sword. It was the same this time. Very quickly, a person wearing a green robe with his hair tied up casually and carrying a wooden sword on his back appeared in his line of sight. He was a handsome youth carrying a wooden sword. His appearance was the same, but it was completely different from when Qin Nan had first seen him. The green robe he wore was patched in several places, making it look a little tattered. Not only that, his face was full of flattery, and there was no domineering air to speak of. "This guy is the young Blue Dome Master?" Qin Nan was a little confused. If he had not seen the portrait, he definitely would not have noticed this youth. "Damn it, I originally sold this sword for 30 immortal essences, and now I've sold it to you for 5 immortal essences, and you still want 1 immortal essence? Why don't you go to heaven? Hurry up and get lost, don't disturb my business." The stall owner was a rather domineering middle-aged man. The man scolded this terrifying overlord mercilessly. "Don't be like this, sir. You don't know, but my Dao companion was miserable back then. She and I cultivated to the sovereign realm with great difficulty. But who knew that one day, a mystical sword light would suddenly descend from the sky and kill her? Before she died, she told me that she could not accompany me in this life, and that she could only become a sword in the next life to accompany me." The future Blue Dome Master's face was full of pain as he spoke with tears streaming down his face. The stall owner and the surrounding cultivators could not help but laugh. Chapter 2480. 100 breaths later, in a remote courtyard in Sword Xuandu. The delicate youth looked left and right, and after confirming that there was no one around, he pushed open the door to the courtyard. "Hee, little brother Lin Lao, I'll bring you to see the beautiful scenery today." The delicate youth made a gesture of invitation, his face full of pride. Qin Nan was curious, and when he entered the courtyard, the corner of his mouth twitched. The courtyard was not big, only about 50 zhang in radius. However, whether it was the blue flagstone floor, the only big tree, the stone table, the wooden chair, or the wooden bed, they were all filled with swords and swords hung on them. Some of the swords were extremely powerful, their auras were like rainbows, flickering with light. Some of the swords were extremely weak, without any special characteristics, and were extremely ordinary. There were even some broken swords that had completely lost their spirit energy. Sigh, what a pity. I destroyed that thing last time, so I couldn't bring you to see my treasure. Otherwise, you will definitely be shocked. The delicate youth looked at the scene in the courtyard, his eyes blurred, and began to mutter, "This time, on the way to Sword Xuandu, I also suffered heavy losses, causing me to not have much money left. Otherwise, I wouldn't have only bought so little." At this point, he suddenly came to a realization and slapped his head. Right. Little brother Lin Lao, don't just stand at the door, quickly come in and take a seat. Qin Nan looked left and right. Where else could he sit in this courtyard? The delicate youth clearly had experience in dealing with this kind of situation. With a wave of his sleeve, dozens of ancient swords buzzed and released strands of sword qi, condensing into 2 chairs and a table. Little brother Lin Lao, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and sit. Qin Nan walked forward woodenly and sat on the unique chair. He felt that the area below his waist was a little cold. If his cultivation was not high enough, he would probably be stabbed to death, right? Little brother Lin Lao, you came here specially to find me? Why are you looking for me? In the eyes of the delicate youth, specks of starlight had unknowingly appeared. Although his face was still full of smiles, as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other for many years, Qin Nan's heart still trembled. Perhaps none of the cultivators at this grand meeting paid much attention to this young man, who was only at the peak heavenly venerate realm. However, Qin Nan knew very well that this delicate young man was extraordinarily terrifying. Brother Zhao, it's true that I'm here specifically for you. The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind as he admitted it. I want to become stronger. The delicate and pretty young man's name was Zhao Xinzhen. It was unknown if he was real or not. Oh, I've already guessed that. Otherwise, I'm poor and only have a bunch of swords. There's no point for you to look for me. The handsome young man nodded. His eyes were filled with curiosity. But, how do you know that I'm very strong? Being guided by an expert. Wow, you're not a simple expert. The handsome young man slapped his thigh and praised. That's right. With your current problem, in the entire universe, only I can solve it. Otherwise, you cannot defeat your destined enemy. As soon as these words came out, Qin Nan's heart suddenly trembled. Destined enemy? Was he referring to Tsang and Yi Zhaoxian? But how did Zhao Xian know? The handsome young man seemed to have seen the doubts in Qin Nan's heart. His smile became very mysterious as he said, "You don't have to guess blindly. I don't know any divination techniques, but it's obvious that you are involved in the battle of the worlds, the battle of the origins, so you are destined. Enemies. The winner controls everything. The loser turns into yellow sand." Qin Nan's heart trembled. From these words, he vaguely guessed something. Brother Zhao, the battle of the worlds, the battle of the origins you mentioned, could it be that you mean? The handsome young man shook his head before he finished speaking. I can't tell you this for the time being. If you've already won, I can tell you. But not now or you'll lose completely. Qin Nan had countless doubts in his heart and wished to ask immediately. But he still forcefully endured it and said, Brother Zhao, from what you said just now, there's a problem with me? The handsome young man nodded and said, Your problem is quite serious. You cultivate more than a dozen cultivation methods, but the strongest cultivation method is only incomplete. Furthermore, you're about to advance to a Supreme Empyrean. If you advance to a Supreme Empyrean in this state, then you won't have the chance to touch the realm of Tao. Qin Nan's eyes revealed curiosity. Tao? What's that? The handsome young man said, The world only knows that above Empyrean is Supreme Empyrean. But, in reality, that's not the case. Between Empyrean and Empyrean, between Supreme Empyrean and Supreme Empyrean, or even between other realms, there are differences. In the Empyrean level, itself, knowing the earth, responding to the heavens, and Tao. At present, in the entire myriad worlds, in the Empyrean level, cultivating to know the earth is extraordinary. Cultivating to respond to the heavens, that must be a top genius. As for Tao, there are very few, and can be counted on one's fingers. Qin Nan's heart stirred. This so-called self, knowing the earth, responding to the heavens, and Tao were very similar to the four extreme realms that he had experienced back then. Then I'm now considered a realm inside Empyrean? Barely passable so considered knowing the earth. The handsome young man said without any trace of politeness, "You're probably still 108,000 miles away from responding to the heavens." Qin Nan's expression turned serious and said, "Brother Zhao, please guide me. How can I reach responding to the heavens, or even Tao?" The handsome young man scratched the back of his head and pondered carefully, saying, "Actually, if you reach responding to the heavens, it's not particularly difficult. The strongest cultivation method that you're currently cultivating, as long as you can perfect it, you can basically reach responding to the heavens." Speaking up to here, the handsome young man's face was full of emotion as he said, "I have to say, younger brother, your luck is very good, to actually be able to find me in this myriad worlds. Not that I'm bragging, as long as you follow by my side, at most 30 years, you can perfect your cultivation method. Your cultivation method will reach responding to the heavens." In the end, he even added a sentence. "Of course, this time, when the great Yen World Mountain's profound mysteries open, you can't assail Supreme Empyrean. Otherwise, this problem will be quite troublesome to solve in the future." Qin Nan's brows furrowed when he heard that and said, "Brother Zhao, I don't have that much time. Roughly how long do you have?" 6 months, only slightly more than 5 months. The handsome young man's head darkened when he heard that and said, "Slightly more than 5 months? Younger brother, are you making fun of me? Want to reach responding to the heavens in slightly more than 5 months? Do you think that you're big brother, me?" Qin Nan smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Zhao, I'm not making fun of you. I indeed only have slightly more than 5 months' time at most. As long as the time is up, I have to leave. But, after I leave..." Without waiting for him to finish, the handsome young man waved his hand and said, "If you don't follow by my side, there's no meaning." Qin Nan's heart sank slightly and said, "Brother Zhao, don't you have any other way to make me stronger?" "There are many ways to become stronger. For example, let you advance to a Supreme Empyrean, let you cultivate an Emperor rank cultivation method. But you'll face your old enemy, these things are all meaningless. Even if you become stronger, you'll still be defeated in the end. Only by arriving." Chapter 2481. Qin Nan quickly asked, "What method?" The handsome youth smiled mysteriously and said, "Hee, I can't reveal the secret. You'll know when the time comes. However, before that, we have to do something big. Do you know young Master Zhenli?" "Never heard of him. You're really ignorant." The handsome youth rolled his eyes and said, "Young Master Zhenli is one of the last disciples of Little Sky Palace. He's also considered a genius. He's holding a banquet in Sword Xuandu today, and has invited many other geniuses. A genius from a major power." Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Did Yen Danqing come to Sword Xuandu to attend young Master Zhenli's banquet? "Are we going to attend the banquet?" "No." The handsome youth shook his head and said, "We're going there to sell things. To be more precise, we're going to take out some good stuff to exchange for the good stuff in the hands of those geniuses. One of the treasures is very suitable for now. It's yours." Qin Nan was stunned and said, "But I don't have anything good in my hands right now." "Aren't you?" The handsome youth did not wait for him to finish and took out a palm-sized black stone. There was a faint black light on it and he said, "Take a look and see what this is." Qin Nan immediately used his eye technique to observe it carefully. However, the longer he looked, the more confused he became. No matter how he looked at it, this black stone only contained an extremely pure aura. Although Qin Nan did not know what this aura was, he could feel that it was not very mysterious. "Brother Zhao, don't keep me in suspense. My eyesight is average, so I can't tell what this is." Qin Nan smiled bitterly and shook his head. Snap! The delicate young man snapped his fingers and said, "You're right, this isn't a good thing. This is called a black fog stone. Although it's not common in the universe, it's not very valuable. Qin Nan was stunned. Then why are you taking this? The handsome youth did not speak. Instead, he formed a seal with one hand and muttered something. After a long time, he let out a shout and flicked his finger. A ray of 7-colored light flew into the black fog stone. In an instant, the entire black fog stone began to tremble violently. The roars of dragons and tigers resounded in the courtyard. A desolate aura overflowed from the stone. Qin Nan immediately opened his eyes wide. Pung, 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 a series of explosions rang out. The entire surface of the black fog stone started to shatter layer by layer, as if all of its concealment had been removed. When the 5th explosion sounded, the palm-sized black fog stone had shrunk to the size of a fist. However, it was no longer pitch black. Instead, it was suffused with a 7-colored brilliance. Inside the stone, there were even faint phantoms of countless ferocious beasts flashing. The true dragon swam, the phoenix broke through the sky, the qilin appeared, and so on. Under Qin Nan's eye power, that strand of extremely pure aura actually skyrocketed by over 10,000 times. Moreover, it even gave off an ancient and desolate feeling, as if it contained the great profundities of the myriad of worlds. Even if one could not see its origin, it would still make one feel that it was an extremely precious treasure. This is... Qin Nan was shocked. How did the black fog stone suddenly become like this? How is it? Brother Zhao, I'm awesome, right? This technique of mine is a unique technique that I created myself. In the entire universe, I am the only one who knows how to use it. The delicate youth said with a smug expression, From now on, this stone is no longer a black fog stone, but a black fog stone. The desolate stone of the myriad demons. Qin Nan reacted and immediately realized what the handsome youth wanted to do. You mean we're faking it? The handsome youth spat 3 times and said, What's faking it? We're passing off the fake as the real thing. Alright, let's not talk nonsense. Do you dare to do this with me? If we succeed, I guarantee that you'll reach the heavens response realm in 5 months. Those geniuses are not simple people. How could they not see it? You still don't believe in my ability? Let alone them, even if a supreme heavenly venerable came, he would not be able to tell the difference. Alright, then I'll do it. That's right. We'll rely on this piece of black fog. Oh no, the demonic heaven desolate stone? Of course not. I think that with young Master Zhenli's face, he should be able to call a lot of people. So, we have to prepare at least 1,000 black fog stones. Then do you have enough black fog stones? What a joke. I have a few mountains here. Thus, Qin Nan and the future master of the Blue Dome began a large-scale counterfeiting operation. About 10 hours later, in the center of the city of Sword Xuandu. Compared to the liveliness of the other streets, as the most central area, there were much fewer cultivators coming and going. This was because the faction that built Sword Xuandu, in order to sell a small favor to some other factions, had built a small palace in a radius of tens of thousands of miles. In this location, small palaces were built. Among them, one of the palaces was the most eye-catching. It was not like the other palaces, which only had 3 floors. It had a total of 5 floors, and the walls were engraved with many paintings of gods and demons, which gave off an inexplicable sense of majesty. Below the palace, several ancient immortal formations had been set up with powerful means, causing the entire palace to be filled with immortal intent. The owner of this palace was naturally the last disciple of Small Sky Palace, young Master Zhenli. Unlike the usual tranquility, there were many strange beasts standing at the entrance of the palace. There were Kirins pulling palanquins, dragons sleeping, and heavenly birds standing alone, etc. Each of the strange beasts exuded a shocking aura that made one's heart tremble. When the cultivators who lived in the other palaces sensed this scene, they were not displeased at all. Instead, they looked enviously at the palace. News of the banquet organized by young Master Zhen Li had spread 3 days ago. However, the requirements to participate in the banquet were very high. They had tried many methods, but in the end, they could not enter to take a look. Right at this moment, 2 figures were rushing toward the palace. What do we do later? Do we just barge in? Qin Nan asked in a low voice. He had never done something like counterfeiting before. Now that it was a critical moment, his heart was really a little excited. Barge in? Are you stupid? You'll be surrounded. The handsome young man glared at him. When he reached the entrance of the palace, he stopped in his tracks. Looking ahead, he gathered his qi in his dantian and shouted, "Rare treasures are on sale. Don't miss it." Chapter 2482. The cultivators in the other small palaces were immediately alarmed, and they all looked over. How dare these 2 sell their treasures in front of young Master Zhen Li's palace? Don't they know that young Master Zhen Li is holding a banquet? TSK, these 2 must know that there is a banquet going on inside. They are doing this on purpose. It seems like they are here to pick a fight. The cultivators were interested and did not look away. They just waited and watched. The handsome young man was still shouting loudly, and he didn't forget to glare at Qin Nan. Qin Nan quickly reacted. Although he felt a little embarrassed, he still forced himself to open his mouth and shout along with the young man. In an instant, the originally quiet street was filled with the sound of rolling thunder. "How dare you!" Suddenly, a loud shout came from the palace in front of Qin Nan and the handsome young man. Then, 2 elders in gray robes flew out of the palace like peerless divine swords. 2 waves of peak celestial master aura were released at the same time, enveloping Qin Nan and the handsome young man. Their auras are a lot weaker than mine. Qin Nan's heart shuddered. The 2 old men were most likely heaven highnesses who had yet to achieve the true self realm. This was the first time that Qin Nan felt the difference between peak celestial masters. When he was in the primary upper realm, he did not notice this. This is the resting place of young Master Zhen Li, the last disciple of Little Heaven Palace. Young Master Zhen Li is holding a banquet for all the geniuses. How can you be so noisy here? Get out of here! One of the gray-robed elders looked down at Qin Nan and the handsome young man coldly and sternly shouted. Every word he said was like an ice-cold blade. If it was someone with an unstable mind, they would definitely suffer a certain degree of impact. The handsome young man curled his lips and said, "Why are you shouting? What can you do if I don't leave?" The gray-robed elder was furious. "Do you want to die?" The handsome young man looked up and said with disdain, "So what if I want to die? Hit me if you dare." "You!" The 2 old men trembled with anger. They didn't expect this bold thief to be this arrogant. However, even if this was the case, there was nothing they could do. Before the mysteries of the Grand Evolution World Mountain opened, it was completely impossible to use force. If he really used force, he would definitely be suppressed by the laws of the World Mountain. Listen up, you 2. I'm selling peerless treasures right now. They're extremely rare. If you don't have a good attitude, I'll turn around and leave. When the time comes, young Master Zhen Li and the others will regret it. You will not have a good day. Pass. The delicate young man shouted. The 2 gray-robed old men were so angry that they laughed. You have a peerless treasure? Don't be too arrogant. If you have the guts, say your name. The young man's gaze became even more disdainful. Why should I say it? Do you think I'm stupid? Qin Nan couldn't help but laugh out loud. He didn't expect the future owner of the Blue Dome to be so sharp with his words. He didn't care about his reputation at all and made others feel that he was despicable. Just then, a faint voice came from the palace. Elders, why aren't they leaving? Following the voice, a handsome young man in a white robe with long hair that reached his shoulders walked out from the palace. He had a noble aura, as if he was the son of a god. This was young Master Zhen Li. There were two other people standing beside young Master Zhenli. One of them was Yan Danqing, whom Qin Nan had seen before. The other was a young man holding a golden fan and wearing a golden robe. He looked very pompous. Qin Nan secretly used his eye technique to observe. He couldn't help but nod slightly. Young Master Zhenli and Yan Danqing's cultivation had both reached the peak of the heavenly venerate realm. There was also a lot of celestial light shining in their bodies, making it impossible for others to see their depth. They were indeed not simple. The other pompous young master was only a heavenly venerate in the great accomplishment realm. Young Master. The two gray-robed elders reacted and immediately flew to young Master Zhenli's side. They transmitted the situation to him while coldly looking at Qin Nan and Yan Danqing. Young Master Zhenli's gaze finally landed on Qin Nan and Yan Danqing. Streaks of celestial light appeared in his clear black and white eyes. Clearly, he was using some kind of eye technique to observe Qin Nan and Yan Danqing. "Gentlemen, what rare treasures do you want to sell? Why don't you take them out and let me have a look?" Young Master Zhenli said calmly. "At the same time, I would like to remind the two of you that I'm currently hosting a banquet to entertain all the geniuses. If the things you take out are not good enough, then don't blame me for punishing you for your crimes." Punishing? Generally speaking, only big countries, dynasties, sects, and aristocratic families would use this term when dealing with their subordinate. However, in young Master Zhenli's eyes, Qin Nan and the delicate young man were like his subordinates. If he wanted to punish them, he could punish them. The delicate young man ignored him and looked at Qin Nan. Qin Nan smiled faintly and said, "Then I'm afraid young master won't have a chance." He flipped his palm and took out a stone. A desolate aura immediately emanated from the stone. The heavenly desolation stone of demons? Yan Danqing and the pompous young master moved at almost the same time and came before Qin Nan. They both activated their powerful eye techniques and carefully observed the stone. "It really is the heavenly desolation stone of demons." Yan Danqing looked at it for a while and nodded slightly without any expression on his face. Young Master Zhenli glanced at it and did not move. He said calmly, "Is this the rare treasure you mentioned? Although the heavenly desolation stone of demons is rare, it's only this size and there's only one of it. It can only be considered a rare treasure. It's far from rare. A rare treasure. The two of you are hawking in front of my palace for no reason. You have offended me. How about this? Leave this item behind, and I won't pursue this matter any further." With just a few words, he wanted to take the heavenly desolation stone of demons for free. The two gray-robed elders looked at him with sarcasm. Qin Nan did not wait for him to finish. He waved his hand and took out a beast skin bag from his storage bag. He said, "Young master, don't speak too soon. Who said that we only have one?" He lifted the beast skin bag and poured it down. Walala! Pieces of heavenly desolation stone of demons of different sizes immediately fell to the ground. The desolate aura that emanated from it suddenly became 10 times stronger. It swept in all directions like a strong wind. Chapter 2483. The demonic heavenly desolation stone only existed in the heavenly demon realm. Every stone needed at least 1,000 years to be born. In addition, the demon palaces in the heavenly demon realm valued this stone very much. They forbade cultivators from other races to come and mine it. Those who did would be killed. Moreover, the demon palaces also forbade any demon clan from selling the demonic heavenly desolation stone in the outside world. They could only use it for their own cultivation. Therefore, there were very few demonic heavenly desolation stones in the outside world. Usually, it was very rare to see a few pieces. However, the two cultivators in front of him took out hundreds of them. Did they rob the demon princes of some demon palaces? "Master, I wonder if these together are worthy of being called a peerless treasure?" Qin Nan asked. Hundreds of demonic heavenly desolation stones, of course, it is. Young Master Zhenli reacted. He smiled faintly and said, "It seems that I have underestimated the two of you. How about this, name a price, and I will take all of these demonic heavenly desolation stones. I will take them." Yan Danqing said calmly, "Master Zhenli, there are so many demonic heavenly desolation stones. You want to take them all by yourself? Isn't that too unkind?" The pompous young man also said, "That's right. Brother Zhenli, the cultivation technique that I am practicing needs a few dozen demonic heavenly desolation stones." When the two gray-robed elders saw this, their expressions changed and they broke out in cold sweat. The cultivators in the other palaces were also shocked. They originally thought that Qin Nan and Yan Danqing were here to find trouble. Who would have thought that these two people were really here to sell their treasures? However, it made sense. Master Zhenli was holding a banquet, and the guests were all extraordinary people. It was very convenient to sell the demonic heavenly desolation stones here. "How should I address you? I am Yang Xiaofei, the last disciple of the Pure Yang Palace. My dead father is the palace master of the Pure Yang Palace. Give me some face and sell me 30 demonic heavenly desolation stones at a cheaper price. Is that okay?" The pompous young man quickly looked at Qin Nan and said, "He, Yang Xiaofei, how can there be people like you who introduce themselves before buying things?" At this moment, a blue-robed youth suddenly walked out of the palace. He was playing with 2 jade beads in his hand. His face was full of disdain. A group of cultivators walked out from behind the blue-robed youth. There were both men and women, and they were all young. Almost all of them were Empyrean exalt. The appearance of over 100 demonic heaven-desolated rocks had startled the geniuses who had gathered at the scene. "Lan Lai, what I, Yang Xiaofei, do has nothing to do with you," Yang Xiaofei said coldly, not hiding the disgust in his eyes. "All right, the two of you shouldn't keep arguing," a beautiful woman in a long yellow dress said in a gentle voice. She glanced at Qin Nan and said, "Yan is quite impressed that you two cultivators are willing to offer so many demonic heaven desolation rocks. However, we have a lot of people here. I don't think these myriad demon heaven desolation stones are enough. I wonder how the two of you plan to sell these demonic heaven desolate stones?" At that instant, everyone's attention was focused on the duo. The handsome young man coughed and said, "It's very simple, we don't want immortal essences, we only want immortal swords. The stronger the swords you have, the more demonic heaven desolation stones you can trade for." Qin Nan was given a fright. He immediately transmitted his voice, "Brother Zhao, aren't we here for that? Why are we trading for swords first?" The handsome young man glanced at Qin Nan and said, "Don't worry, brother, I know what I'm doing." Qin Nan had no choice but to calm down after hearing his words. Trading for swords? The geniuses were startled. They had never heard of such a strange request before. "I have a sword here. It's refined with the blood of 10 different ancient beasts and refined with the interlocking heavenly stones. It can barely be considered a second-grade immortal weapon. I wonder if it will work?" A black-clothed youth took the lead and took out a sword. The sword looked like blood, with faint cries of beasts coming from it. "Liang Yi, aren't you being a little too shabby? You're trying to trade for a demonic heaven desolation stone with a mere second-grade immortal weapon? You're seriously?" Yang Xiaofei mocked. However, before he could finish, he saw the handsome young man's eyes glittering like a starving wolf that had just found a feast. His breathing intensified as he said, "Trade for a trade. I'll trade for a demonic heaven desolation stone, what do you think?" Qin Nan facebombed. The guy was so obsessed with swords that he lost his mind when he saw a sword. He even suspected that Liang Yi would agree to it right away if he asked for 10 demonic heaven desolation stones. Is that even possible? Yang Xiaofei and the rest of the geniuses were astounded. They could not believe it. "I have an immortal sword that's refined with the blood of the demonic sky, sacred sapphire water, and 3 primordial immortal stones. It's a third-grade immortal weapon. The geniuses collected their thoughts and went up to Qin Nan and Yang Xiaofei, surrounding them. Brother, you can't sell them like this. Let me sell them, I'll be able to get more immortal swords. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to the handsome young man when he saw the situation. All right, you can sell them, as long as you can get more immortal swords. The handsome young man nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Thus, many of the surrounding cultivators didn't expect that what was supposed to be a banquet for geniuses would turn into a treasure trading convention. No, to be more precise, it was a sword trading convention. Not long after, only 30 demonic heaven desolation stones were left. The handsome young man had acquired more than 100 different kinds of immortal sword. His face was filled with joy. The sword trading convention began to cool down. After all, the price had risen significantly after Qin Nan was the one selling the immortal sword. They were no longer able to take advantage of the situation. They had basically finished exchanging their immortal sword. My fellow cultivators. Just then, young Master Zhenli, who had been silent all this time, said, I don't have any extra immortal swords to exchange. How about this, you sell the remaining demonic heaven desolation stones to me, and I'll give you a stone of the Emperor Yen. I'll owe you a favor. What do you think? Young Master Zhenli took out a stone. Unlike the demonic heaven desolation stones, this stone was like a flame that lit up the surroundings. Qin Nan looked at it and immediately sensed that this stone contained a vast amount of pure immortal qi. There was also a faint trace of mysterious immortal qi. The stone of the Emperor Yen? Brother Zhenli, you're really generous. Yang Xiaofei could not help but exclaim. In reality, one stone of the Emperor Yen was slightly less valuable than 30 demonic heaven desolation stones. Chapter 2484. As soon as he said that, many people frowned. Yang Xiaofei could not help but say, My friend, Brother Zhenli took out a stone of the Emperor Yen and is willing to owe you a favor. He is already very sincere. Why are you still not exchanging? Qin Nan shook his head and said, I'm really sorry. We are exchanging for the divine sword. You. Yang Xiaofei was about to say something, but he was stopped by Prince Zhenli. Prince Zhenli took out a jade pendant from his storage bag. It emitted rings of blue light. If that's the case, I'll add a piece of the Water Emperor's jade. What do you think? Qin Nan glanced at it and realized that the jade pendant contained a strong water will. It was only slightly weaker than the stone of the Emperor Yen. Fellow Taoist Zhenli is truly generous. The stone of the Emperor Yen and the Water Emperor's jade. With the help of these two treasures, I can definitely cultivate a killing skill of water and fire. A genius could not help but exclaim. The combined value of these two treasures far exceeded the value of the 30 demonic heaven desolation stones. My lord, I'm really sorry. I'm not exchanging, Qin Nan said calmly. The geniuses present were stunned. They had not expected Qin Nan to reject these two treasures. Yang Xiaofei was even more annoyed. My friend, don't push your luck. Don't wait until the mystery is opened and something unexpected happens on the way. My friend, quit while you're ahead. My friend, since Prince Zhenli is so sincere, why don't we fulfill his wish? It's better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Some of the other geniuses could not help but chime in. Everyone could hear the hint of threat in their words. If it were any other cultivator, they would definitely choose to lower their heads in such a situation. After all, this was not just offending Prince Zhenli, but offending a group of geniuses. Unfortunately, they were facing the future owner of the Blue Dome and Qin Nan. The former did not care at all. He was happily playing with the sword in his hand. The latter's expression did not change either. We are here to trade for the immortal sword and nothing else, Qin Nan said coldly. Yang Xiaofei and the rest of the geniuses did not expect Qin Nan to be so stubborn under such circumstances. Hee, fellow Taoist, don't show off for a moment. Otherwise, you really won't even know how you died. Lan Lai said with a cold smile as his body emitted strands of killing intent. All right. Let's not talk about it anymore. The girl named Yen took out a light yellow immortal sword. There seemed to be countless rivers running inside it. She smiled and said, "Since you only want to exchange for the immortal sword, I will do it for Big Brother Zhenli. Forget it. This 9 bends river sword was refined from 9 types of Yuan rivers. What do you think?" Qin Nan was about to nod when Prince Zhenli shook his head and said, "Yen this is my business. How can I use your sword?" After he finished speaking, he looked at Qin Nan. There was a hint of sharpness in his calm eyes. "I have a sword here called the Sun God Sword. I want to exchange it for your remaining demonic heaven desolate stones." After he finished speaking, he waved his hand. An immortal sword that looked like it was burning with flames slowly appeared. It released an extremely shocking sword that swept through the entire street. Everyone could feel that this sword had extremely strong power. It was much stronger than the immortal swords that the geniuses had taken out earlier. Yang Xiaofei's expression changed slightly. "Prince Zhenli, isn't this sword?" Prince Zhenli looked at him and stopped him from speaking. Then he said to Qin Nan, "What do you think?" "No problem." Qin Nan did not continue to refuse. He let the handsome young man take the sword and give the remaining demonic heaven desolate stones to him. Young Master Zhenli was expressionless as he said, "Up until now, we still don't know your names. Can you tell us?" Qin Nan did not care. He said, "I'm Lin Xiaoji. This is my elder brother. I don't have a master yet." After all, he was not from this world. There was no harm in revealing his name. Lin Xiaoji. The geniuses present were all secretly wondering if they had heard of this name. Prince Zhenli nodded slightly and said, "So it's Taoist Lin. Taoist Lin, you have come to my palace to hold this treasure exchange. You have done me a favor. Taoist Lin, why don't you enter the palace with us? We can taste some good wine and talk about martial arts. Why not?" Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He knew that by rejecting Prince Zhenli, they had offended Prince Zhenli, Yang Xiaofei, and the other geniuses. However, martial arts were not allowed in the Great Evolution World Mountain. There was no harm in entering. Most importantly, he could take advantage of this opportunity to properly understand the strength of these geniuses and gain a better understanding of the martial Tao of the myriad of worlds. Qin Nan was about to ask the handsome young man when he suddenly heard a sound of surprise. He looked over instinctively. Liang Yi, who had been the first to exchange for the demonic heaven desolate stone, was looking at his palm with a puzzled expression. The demonic heaven desolate stone in his palm seemed to have lost its power. All the light and aura were flowing away. Gradually, a pitch-black color was revealed. F***CK. Qin Nan could not help but curse in his heart. On the way here, he had asked the handsome young man. The handsome young man was very good at faking. As long as these geniuses did not try to absorb the demonic heaven desolate stone, they would not be able to tell that it was fake. Logically speaking, these geniuses would not refine the demonic heaven desolate stone on the spot. They would wait until the banquet was over and they returned to the palace. However, he had not expected Liang Yi to start refining the stone on the spot. "I have to run." The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind as he glanced to his side. However, there was no one beside him. The handsome young man had already turned into a ray of light and flew ahead. When Qin Nan looked back, he had already reached the end of the street and disappeared around the corner. F***CK. Qin Nan cursed in his heart again. This guy had just left him behind and ran away. Was he still the future master of the Blue Dome? "My friend, I'm sorry. We still have things to do. See you later," Qin Nan said as he dashed forward at a shocking speed. Prince Zhenli and the other geniuses were stunned. Chapter 2485. Young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the rest of the geniuses were shocked. They used all kinds of techniques to absorb the demonic heavenly desolation stones in order to distinguish the real from the fake. Young Master Zhenli was even bolder. A towering sword essence gushed out from his palm and crushed the 3 demonic heavenly desolation stones into countless black stone fragments. There was not a trace of desolation intent in them. They're all fake. We've been fooled by them. Young Master Zhenli's face instantly turned cold. He turned into a dazzling sword radiance and rushed behind Qin Nan with a towering killing intent. You're courting death. Yan Danqing, Yang Xiaofei, and the rest of the geniuses were furious. They immediately activated their powerful superpowers and turned into streaks of dazzling rainbow light. They broke through the sky and brought with them countless airwaves. Qin Nan felt a chill in his heart. He felt as though there were countless sharp swords behind him that were about to stab him. Body of origin energy, wings of origin energy. Qin Nan quickly activated the Datong Sky skill. He mobilized the origin energy in his body and turned it into a pair of wings. He flapped them continuously and increased his speed by several times. Zhao Xinjin, stop right there. Qin Nan quickly saw the light that the handsome young man had turned into. He immediately sent a voice transmission to the young man. The handsome young man stopped in his tracks, as though he was really going to stop. However, in the next moment, the handsome young man suddenly crashed into a wall of the palace. There was no sound and he disappeared, as though he had blended into the wall. Qin Nan used his eye technique, but found nothing. Qin Nan gritted his teeth and flicked out a wisp of saber essence. He slashed the wall into pieces, but there was still no trace of the handsome young man. It was as though he had completely disappeared from the world. Origin sword skill. Suddenly, a long howl pierced the sky. Young Master Zhenli, who was furious, had used a terrifying killing skill. He condensed thousands of vast sword essences and turned them into a dazzling river. However, before the sword-will river could be unleashed, a muffled explosion sounded above the street. An invisible force suddenly descended, shattering the brilliant river into pieces. Not only that, but the remaining power was like a long whip that lashed toward young Master Zhenli. The latter's expression changed slightly, and he quickly took out a fairy artifact. Qin Nan's mouth twitched. Mr. Zhenli had disregarded the rules of the Great Evolution World Mountain and still wanted to attack Qin Nan. From this, one could see how angry Mr. Zhenli was. Run! Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He immediately executed the arts of Dao seeking. He had no idea what would happen if the geniuses caught him. Boom! Boom! This astonishing chase and escape caused a huge commotion. It immediately alarmed countless cultivators in the sword Xuandu as they swept over with their divine sense. What happened? F***CK. Young Master Zhenli? Yan Danqing? Yang Xiaofei? And that wasn't it. What was going on? Weren't they having a banquet? Why are they chasing after the young man so aggressively? I just received an order from young Master Yang. The young man is called Lin Xiaoji. He used the fake beast horde desolation rock to trick the geniuses into giving him their treasures. Don't just stand there, let's chase after him. Many people learned what had happened at the banquet in just a short while. They were astounded. More cultivators were chasing after Qin Nan. Time passed by slowly. 10 hours later. Halfway up the Great Evolution World Mountain, in an ancient forest, Qin Nan descended from the sky and landed on a tree branch, panting heavily. The past 10 hours had been extremely thrilling. He had no choice but to fly out of the sword Xuandu and make his way to another immortal city under the pursuit of the geniuses. He did not dare to stop for even a second. He changed 3 immortal cities in a row to shake off his pursuers and make his way here. As for the future master of the Blue Dome, ever since he disappeared into that wall, I haven't seen him again. In other words, he had been tricked by the young man. Suddenly, A wisp of immortal glow in his body began to vibrate. Ji Xian's voice entered his mind. Brother Lin, you're so impressive, you managed to trick so many geniuses. The spirit of the celestial pole list's voice soon appeared too. Ha ha ha, you're pretty impressive. Tell me, how many treasures did you get? Those geniuses are so pissed off. Qin Nan's face instantly darkened hearing this. When Qin Nan told them the whole story, they immediately burst out laughing. Most importantly, when the two guys heard that Qin Nan did not receive any benefits, they decisively decided not to look for Qin Nan, nor did they tell Qin Nan where they were. Qin Nan rolled his eyes. When he thought back to everything that had happened today, a fire of rage burned in his heart. He had been too careless this time. He had placed too much trust in the future master of the Blue Dome. This was not Wu Di's fault. Wu Di had only told him that the future master of the Blue Dome was greedy for money and loved swords. He had not told him what kind of person the future master of the Blue Dome was. After all, Wu Di was probably not very clear on this either. Who knows, maybe everything that guy told me earlier was all fake. That bastard was trying to trick me into doing this so that I could attract the wrath of those geniuses. Qin Nan gritted his teeth. If he were to discover that bastard in the future, he would definitely seek revenge regardless of whether he would become the future master of the Blue Dome. After a long while, Qin Nan's heart gradually calmed down. He looked at the lush forest before him and couldn't help but sigh. The opening of the mystery of the Great Yen World Mountain had attracted countless factions and experts. In such a grand occasion, even geniuses from major factions like young Master Zhen Li and Yen Danqing, who were on the myriad worlds ranking, would not be able to become the center of attention. But now, he had become the center of attention, it probably wouldn't take long for the news of him tricking those geniuses to spread throughout the Great Yen World Mountain. Everyone would know. When Qin Nan thought of this, he felt a headache coming on. He rubbed his eyebrows. Under such circumstances, I'm afraid I can't enter those immortal cities. I can only stay here and wait for the mystery to open. Qin Nan shook his head and walked toward the forest. He wanted to find a more secluded place. Chapter 2486. Qin Nan soon saw a ray of pure celestial light float out from the void. It landed on the branch of the ancient tree and turned into a 7-petal celestial lotus. On the lotus seat was a woman in a white dress. The woman's appearance could not be said to be good-looking. She could only be considered average. However, her skin was extremely fair. Even the light golden pendant hanging from her exquisite collarbone seemed to shine under her snow-like skin. Qin Nan turned around and prepared to fly away. In his opinion, this woman was clearly on young Master Zhen Li's side. Now that his location had been exposed, he had to find another place. You don't have to be like this. I'm not here to chase you, the woman in the white dress said lightly. I'm here because of the space-time power. Qin Nan's footsteps suddenly stopped. He stared at the woman in the white dress and asked, "What do you know?" The woman in the white dress said, "If I'm not wrong, you should be from the future. You don't belong to this era." Qin Nan was shocked. The aura of this woman in the white dress was also at the peak of the Empyrean realm. She was not a terrifying giant. How did she know about this? Moreover, when the woman in the white dress said this, why did the space-time power not block her? Qin Nan took a deep breath and quickly calmed down. He asked, "Who are you?" The woman in the white dress looked at him without any expression on her face. She said, "My surname is Liu, and my name is Ningxuang. I have 2 identities. My first identity is the last disciple of the Sun-Moon Immortal Palace. My second identity is the successor of the Space-Time Temple, the future Saintess." Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He asked, "Miss Liu, what kind of power is the Space-Time Temple?" The woman in the white dress did not answer. She stretched out her fair hand and plucked a green leaf. Then, she flicked it. Qin Nan immediately saw that as the green leaf danced in the air, it seemed to have lost all its vitality. It began to gradually turn yellow and wither. Just as it was about to fall to the ground, it turned into countless fragments that scattered with the wind. The Spacetime Temple has existed for a very long time. I don't know exactly when it was established or when it was destroyed. I only know that when it was destroyed, the Grand Evolution Immortal Sect had yet to be established. Lu Ningshuang said, as the name suggests, the Spacetime Temple is related to the law of spacetime. All disciples of the Spacetime Temple could cultivate the Spacetime Canon, which was related to the power of spacetime. According to the records in the inheritance I obtained, if one cultivates the Spacetime Canon at the pinnacle, they can even wield the laws of space and time, making them invincible. When Qin Nan heard this, his mind could not help but tremble violently. This Spacetime Temple was actually so terrifying. Not only could one cultivate the power of spacetime, but they could also cultivate to the level of controlling spacetime laws. The laws of space and time were one of the most terrifying forces in the world, and they contained endless profundities. If he could truly master it, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was invincible. I didn't expect Miss Lu to be the successor of the saintess of such a great force. Qin Nan forcibly steadied his mind, full of vigilance, and said, "It's just that this one doesn't know why Miss Lu is looking for me. Could it be that you want to find out what happened in the future from me?" Lu Ningshuang shook her head and said, "I'm not too interested in what happened in the future. Moreover, with the laws of space and time, you can't tell me what happened in the future. In fact, many of the things you do now can be obstructed by the laws of space and time. The laws of space and time obstruct you." Qin Nan was even more confused and said, "Then why did you come to me?" Lu Ningshuang said, "It's very simple. I want to ask you something. How did you return to the past from the future?" Qin Nan laughed bitterly and said, "Miss Lu, it's not that I don't want to tell you this, but I really don't know. I returned from the future to the present, but that was done through another power. That force had once obtained some of the laws of space and time. Some ancient books on the power of spacetime created a method." "Ancient books?" Lu Ningshuang pondered for a moment and said, "Could it be the spacetime canon that spread out from the Spacetime Temple?" Qin Nan did not say anything. He had no idea what the Spacetime Canon was. "Since you don't know, let's just leave it there." Lu Ningshuang looked at him and said, "There's still something I don't understand. Why is there a spacetime mark in your body?" Qin Nan was stunned. "A spacetime mark? In my body?" Lu Ningshuang did not wait for him to finish. She flicked her finger and a gray light immediately entered Qin Nan's body. Qin Nan felt as if his entire body was on fire and began to burn fiercely. His expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to make a move, he realized that a gray prismatic mark had appeared in his mind without him noticing. It was a weak fluctuation. Qin Nan was very familiar with this fluctuation. It was the power of space and time. The conditions for a cultivator to condense a space-time mark like this are extremely harsh and difficult. Ever since I became the successor of the Spacetime Temple, I have never discovered this space-time mark in anyone else's body, Lu Ningshuang said. Lu Ningshuang, for you to be able to condense this space-time mark, you must have returned to the present from the future and experienced some huge space-time fluctuation. Hearing this, Qin Nan suddenly realized something. Could it be because he had entered the light of space and time? Lu Ningshuang suddenly thought of something and said, "Oh, right. There's something else I need to tell you. According to my guess, you can only stay in the present for about 100 to 200 years from the future. Once the time is up, you will be forcefully sent back to the present by the spacetime law, to prevent a spacetime storm from occurring." Qin Nan suddenly had a bad feeling when he heard this. However, after you experienced some huge spacetime fluctuation, a spacetime mark was condensed in your body. Therefore, the spacetime law discovered you earlier and began to reject you. Simply put, you can only stay in the present for. Lu Ningshuang calculated carefully, then extended 3 fingers. 3 months. Qin Nan's expression changed immediately. What did you say? I can only stay in the present for 3 months? This also reminded Qin Nan of the spacetime force burning him when he first entered the light of space and time. Yes. Hearing Lu Ningshuang's affirmative answer, Qin Nan's heart instantly sank to the bottom. He never thought that entering the light of space and time this time would cause such a serious loss. After all, he originally had 60 to 70 years left. He could have explored the Blue Dome and unraveled the various secrets of the past. Moreover, he could have secretly left many backups in this ancient era. He could have used them when he returned to the past. Chapter 2487. It looks like you don't want to return early, Lu Ningshuang said indifferently when she saw Qin Nan's expression. Qin Nan sighed softly. Of course. It wasn't easy for me to return to the ancient era. Of course I want to use this opportunity to raise my cultivation and break through to a higher realm. Lu Ningshuang moved and floated down from the tree. She arrived in front of Qin Nan. A faint fragrance immediately drifted into Qin Nan's nose. Qin Nan's mood inexplicably improved. I haven't finished what I wanted to say. Lu Ningshuang's lips curled into a faint smile. She looked like a blooming flower. I have a way to help you extend the time you need to return. Qin Nan's spirits immediately rose. He hurriedly asked, Miss Lu, what method do you have? Lu Ningshuang said, It's actually very simple. I can teach you the spacetime canon. After you cultivate this canon, if your martial talent is strong enough and you can cultivate it to the second layer within 3 months, you can extend the time by another month. If you only cultivate Ito the first layer, you can only extend the time by 10 days. Qin Nan was stunned. Lu Ningshuang had previously said that if he cultivated the spacetime canon to its peak, he would be able to control the laws of space and time. From this, it could be seen that the spacetime canon was no small matter. It was probably a secret of the spacetime temple. Qin Nan quickly calmed down. Miss Lu, what are your conditions? Lu Ningshuang revealed a look of admiration. It's actually very simple. You have a spacetime imprint in your body. You have to join the spacetime temple. Furthermore, I have a personal request. If you succeed in the future, you have to come and help me become a temple saintess. What do you think? Qin Nan frowned. Lu Ningshuang saw him like this and asked, What's the problem? Qin Nan sighed and rubbed his eyebrows. Miss Lu, there's no problem in joining the spacetime temple. However, I'm not from this world. I come from another world. So, I really don't know if I can help you when the time comes. That's easy. Lu Ningshuang couldn't help but chuckle. Fellow Lin, it seems that you don't know much about your world. In fact, the world you're in is definitely an existence in the myriad of worlds. Also, I need you to be successful. Only then did he come to help me. If you don't achieve anything, you naturally won't need it. To her, giving Qin Nan the sacred scripture of space and time was purely a matter of convenience. If Qin Nan could achieve something, that would be for the best. If he didn't, she wouldn't lose anything. Qin Nan thought about it carefully. After he felt that there was no problem, he said without any hesitation, Okay, Miss Lu, I promise you. If he could obtain a terrifying cultivation technique like the spacetime scripture that could even extend his time, there was no reason for him to refuse. Lu Ningshuang nodded. She took out an icy blue celestial jade and said, The spacetime canon has a total of 19 levels. You are still an outer disciple of the spacetime temple. According to the sect rules, I can only give you the first 10 levels. Later on Once you reach a certain level, you can come find me. I'll teach you the rest of the cultivation technique. Qin Nan didn't have any objections to this. After all, the two of them had only met by chance. It was reasonable for Lu Ningshuang to keep the rest of the cultivation technique as a backup. Lu Ningshuang took out a golden medallion. A very delicate Lu character was written on it. It gave off a mysterious aura. Keep this medallion well. In the future, you can use this medallion to contact me. Also, you've offended people like young Master Zhenli and Yan Danqing. It will be very disadvantageous for you when you become a supreme heavenly venerate, Lu Ningxuang said. When you meet them, take this medallion out. They definitely won't make things difficult for you so easily. Qin Nan's eyes lit up. This medallion was good stuff. Thank you, Miss Lu. No need to be so polite. I'm about to leave. Do you have any other questions? Qin Nan immediately thought of the Space-Time Sutra. He hurriedly asked, Miss Lu, if I cultivate to the 3rd level of the Space-Time Sutra, how much time will I have? Lu Ningxuang looked into his eyes and said, if you can cultivate to the 3rd level, then you can have 3 more months. However, don't bite off more than you can chew. You only have 3 months. It's impossible for you to cultivate to the 3rd level. It's something that can happen. She seemed to still be a little worried. She earnestly added, don't try to take advantage of the situation and go astray just to extend your time. The most important thing to cultivate the Space-Time Sutra is to be down to earth. Otherwise, there will be endless troubles in the future. Qin Nan nodded solemnly and said, Miss Lu, don't worry. I definitely won't do anything reckless. Lu Ningxuang grunted in acknowledgement and said, there's one more thing I have to remind you. It's best not to tell anyone about the Space-Time Temple. Otherwise, it might bring some trouble and disaster when the time comes. After she finished speaking, she turned into a ray of celestial light and flew into the horizon. Qin Nan looked in the direction she had left. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He really hadn't thought that after being tricked by the future master of the Blue Dome, he would suddenly see the light at the end of the tunnel and obtain another opportunity. Forget it. There's still a few days before the opening of the mysteries. Let's hurry up and cultivate the Space-Time Sutra. Qin Nan murmured in his heart as he immediately flew forward. Before long, he found a hidden cave. He sat down cross-legged and calmed his mind. Then, he probed the celestial jade with his divine consciousness. There are countless rules in the universe. Only the space-time rules are eternal. The space-time rules exist, but they also don't exist. Qin Nan didn't realize that the space-time mark in his mind had begun to glow. It was also because of this that a supreme existence of the space-time temple seemed to be whispering in Qin Nan's ear. Through these very simple words, Qin Nan quickly understood the space-time temple. He quickly understood the Space-Time Sutra. Time trickled by. After about 20 hours, Qin Nan's divine consciousness finally left the jade. He was in awe. It had to be said that the Space-Time Sutra was extraordinarily terrifying. It was far beyond Qin Nan's imagination. I wonder what kind of existence could have created such a cultivation method. Chapter 2488. Time passed. 8 days later. Strands of hazy, gray aura swam through Qin Nan's body like serpents. Qin Nan's aura became extremely mysterious, as if he was shrouded in mystery. Suddenly, the space-time imprint in Qin Nan's sea of consciousness began to tremble violently. As if it had been injected with a tremendous amount of energy, it slowly swelled and transformed into a 3-petaled lotus flower in the end. This was the first layer of the space-time canon. After reaching the first layer, Qin Nan was able to control the power of space-time. He could make a certain place or a certain thing flow faster, or reverse the flow of time. Such an ability was undoubtedly quite terrifying. Unfortunately, the amount of space-time power Qin Nan could control was extremely limited. At most, he could only do what Yi Zhaoxian had done in the past, which was to reverse time by a single breath. The space-time canon really is difficult to learn. I didn't think it would take me so long to barely reach the first layer. Qin Nan opened his eyes and sighed softly in his heart. At this rate, he could only barely reach the 3rd layer. He would not be able to reach the fourth layer before returning to the future and extend the time required. Whatever. 6 months is 6 months then. When I leave this space-time light, I'll still have some time left. I can leave behind some backup plans. Qin Nan shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He continued to cultivate. If Lu Ningxuang were here and knew what he was thinking, she would probably have the urge to draw her sword and slash him. After all, she had become a candidate for saintess of the space-time temple by chance. She had used a few space-time stones. She had spent 2 whole days. She had only managed to reach the first layer after over 10 days. By the time she reached the third layer, a full year had passed. Even so, her talent was still top-notch. It was extremely rare. After an indeterminate amount of time, Qin Nan suddenly felt a strange sensation in his heart. He immediately opened his eyes and looked up at the sky. They only saw that the blue sky had turned into a golden color. Everything in the family was covered in a layer of golden light. Even the grass and trees that could be seen everywhere seemed to have become sacred. Is Xuanji about to open? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Then, he heard the news from the spirit of the celestial pole list and the others. He immediately flew out of the forest and headed forward. Qin Nan channeled the great unity heaven execution and unleashed a powerful divine will. He immediately sensed that everything in the world was undergoing some mysterious changes. After a while, an invisible pressure appeared between heaven and earth. Even with Qin Nan's current cultivation, when he first encountered this pressure, he still felt a sense of trepidation and wanted to prostrate himself in worship. An hour later, 10 cracks over 100,000 li wide appeared in the brilliant sky. It was impossible to see where they started or where they ended, as if 10 mysterious heavenly daos had appeared in the world. Qin Nan also saw a few immortal palaces and immortal cities. The weapon spirits inside them were startled by the rare phenomenon. They were emitting colorful glows, which were particularly eye-catching under the golden sky. Qin Nan had come here as he was clueless about the Xuanji. He could observe how the other cultivators were doing it so that he would not miss out on the opportunity. Qin Nan came to a stop and landed on a little hill. He waited patiently as he sensed the changes taking place between the heavens and earth. Suddenly, dang, 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 a faint chime of a bell echoed in Qin Nan's ears and echoed between the heavens and earth. The cultivators in the immortal palaces and immortal cities immediately rose into the sky and sat down with their legs crossed while gazing at the sky. The bell continued to ring for a total of 33 times. Then, countless strands of purple qi suddenly poured down from the 10 cracks that extended into the sky. Following it, 10 terrifying auras surged across the heavens and earth, as if they had traveled a great distance. What kind of auras are these? Qin Nan was astounded. He had never felt such a terrifying aura even when he was deep inside the blue dome. It felt like he was as tiny as a speck of dust. Qin Nan Ji Xian Long Rua. Before the Xuanji opens, the illusionary figures of 10 immortal emperors will descend upon the great evolution world mountain and give a speech. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Calm your minds and listen carefully. At this moment, the Heavens Pole Leaderboard's experts were all shocked. A voice came from the spirit of the heavens and earth. The speech of 10 immortal emperors? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Even though he had no idea what cultivation the 10 immortal emperors were at, the great evolution sect had only produced 10 immortal emperors despite having existed for more than 1,000,000 years. It was obvious how terrifying the 10 immortal emperors were. Qin Nan immediately sat down with his legs crossed and held his breath. Suddenly, his vision turned dark as he could no longer see anything. Following it, 10 blinding rays suddenly appeared at the end of the darkness. 10 indescribable illusionary figures appeared and sat down with their legs crossed. Without giving Qin Nan any time to think, the first figure began to speak. Its thunderous words shook the heavens and earth. However, a strange sight took place. Qin Nan felt like he was listening to the voice of the great Tao, the truth of the world, yet he could not hear the words clearly as they were all blurry. What's going on? Qin Nan was utterly confused. However, he had no time to ponder at such a crucial moment. He could only focus his attention and try his best to listen. The first figure did not speak for long before it was the second figure's turn, followed by the third. Qin Nan unknowingly entered a mystical state, comprehension. It felt like he was comprehending the great Tao or himself. Very quickly, the 10th figure finished speaking. However, the 10 figures did not leave. Instead, they spoke at the same time. Their thunderous voices became even louder, as if they were going to transcend the world and resound throughout the heavens and earth. It was also at this moment that Qin Nan understood what they were saying for the first time. It was the first word of their first sentence. Chapter 2489. As if thousands of years had passed, but also as if only a snap of a finger had passed, the speech of the 10 great immortal emperors' phantoms had completely ended. Qin Nan had also extricated himself from that mysterious feeling. The speech of the 10 great immortal emperors is indeed no small matter. Qin Nan was somewhat delighted in his heart. This time, his harvest was not small. His understanding of the power of laws had reached a whole new height. Not only that, his comprehension of the space-time canon had also deepened. Originally, he still needed some time to cultivate to the second level, but now, he only needed 2 or 3 days. In this way, he might be able to comprehend the 4th level of the space-time canon before he left and push back the time. How many ancient words did you all understand? Spirit of the Celestial Pole List's voice sounded. I heard from others that every time the 10 great immortal emperors explain, it is the supreme secret scripture of the Great Evolution heavenly sect, the Great Evolution scripture. The more ancient words one hears from it, the more time one will come. After entering the Xuanji realm, the greater the benefits one will obtain. Qin Nan's expression was startled. He did not expect that there was such a secret hidden inside. Heavenly Venerable Long Ra quickly said, I only understood 5 words. Ji Xian mischievously laughed and said, Senior Long Ra, I am a little stronger than you. I understood 7 words. Spirit of the Celestial Pole List snorted and said, Ji Xian, what's there to be proud of about understanding 7 words? Brother Tian, I understood a total of 21 words. Oh right, Shao Ji, how many words did you understand? Don't King tell me more than I know. Heavenly Venerable Long Ruo and Ji Xian are also very curious. They all know that Qin Nan's martial Dao talent is very abnormal. Qin Nan bitterly laughed and said, I don't seem to have any fate with this great evolution scripture. I only understood 1 word. The 3 of them immediately became silent. After a long while, the spirit of the Celestial Pole List broke the silence and said, 1 is 1, it's not a big deal. Anyway, haha. Halfway through its fake consolation, it couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. Ji Xian couldn't help but laugh. I really didn't expect that the number of words I understand is actually 7 times more than what you understand. Brother Lin, you're such a noob. As he spoke, he began to laugh without a care in the world. Qin Nan's face darkened. He immediately used his power of laws to lock down the immortal light. He didn't want to deal with these guys anymore. When he looked up, he saw that the 10 gigantic cracks in the sky were no longer pitch black. Instead, they were shining with an incomparably dense purple light. At first glance, it even gave people the impression that they were purple immortal essence. Suddenly, a creaking sound echoed across the place, echoing in everyone's ears. It was as if a heavenly gate was slowly opening in the darkness. The purple light in the crack immediately began to boil violently. An extremely mysterious aura descended from the crack and engulfed the entire world. Not long after, god talismans of various sizes and colors slowly floated down from the sky. They were like a huge snowstorm as they drifted across the place. The mystery has been revealed. Enter the mountain with the talismans. Meanwhile, in an immortal palace in the distance, an authority that had surpassed the Heaven Highness realm uttered a thunderous roar. He reached out his hand and grabbed at a godly talisman. Following it, countless cultivators immediately reacted and soared into the sky to grab the godly talismans. Qin Nan immediately grabbed a godly talisman too. A formidable force immediately descended upon him and brought him across the rift to a great place. Qin Nan quickly scanned his surroundings after stabilizing himself. The place he was at still didn't feel like the top of a mountain. It was more like a boundless world with undulating mountains. The only thing that was different from the mountainside was that the sky had turned pitch black at some point in time. Countless stars were shining in the sky. What was worth mentioning was that the light emitted by these stars was a lot brighter than the stars that Qin Nan had seen in the night sky before. Some of the stars were like the sun and the moon, pouring down endless starlight onto the ground. They were shining brightly above everything in the world. Qin Nan only took a few glances at the scene. He was not too interested in it. However, little did he know, the cultivators across the heavens and realms, including some geniuses, were astounded when they saw the scene before them. They were astounded by the sight. Every star was a world of its own, and all the stars represented the entirety of the myriad heavens and realms. It should be known that such a star map of heavens and realms was not something that could be seen casually. Apart from the 10 great worlds, in other worlds one could only see a corner of this peerless map. The fact that it could be seen at the top of the Great Evolution World Mountain showed how extraordinary and terrifying the mountain was. Qin Nan did not stay in place. He flew forward. This time, everyone stepped into the mystery with the help of the divine talisman. They were not teleported together. Their positions were random. There was not a single cultivator within tens of thousands of miles around him. Suddenly, Qin Nan saw 5 towering ancient trees growing on the top of a small mountain in the distance. The tree trunks were covered with countless runes, forming a vague image of a great battle between gods and demons. The image gave off a murderous aura. Immortal tree nurturing image? Qin Nan was shocked. This was an extremely rare natural treasure. Once it was refined, not only could it increase one's cultivation, but it could also help one comprehend the meaning of the image, master a certain phenomenon, and cultivate a certain ability. In the great upper realm, every time such a natural treasure appeared, it would definitely attract heavenly venerables to fight over it. But now, they had encountered it so casually? Qin Nan reacted and moved the power of the rules away from the immortal light in his body. He immediately heard Ji Xian scream, "Damn, guess what I encountered? I encountered a turtle statue celestial stone that contains 10 kinds of innate spells." The spirit of the celestial pole list snorted. "So what? I have an immortal tree full of the power of the great Tao." Chapter 2490. Shao Ji Jixian, Long Ra, we still have more than 5 months before the spacetime light ends. The spirit of the celestial pole list said sternly as a thought crossed his mind. We have only just arrived at the Great Evolution World Mountain, yet we can already find extraordinary treasures everywhere. It's a lot easier than we thought to achieve the Supreme Highness realm here. Qin Nan nodded in agreement. Even though there were only 4 Supreme Highnesses since the birth of the primary upper realm until Qin Nan's era, it did not necessarily mean it was difficult to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. However, to achieve it in the primary upper realm, it was a lot more difficult to achieve the Supreme Highness realm than in the other realms. There were only 2 conditions to achieve the Master realm, Ruler realm, and Heaven Highness realm. First, it was a grand occasion. Second, it was extremely valuable resources. Both conditions were difficult to fulfill in the primary upper realm, thus it was extremely difficult to achieve the Supreme Highness realm. On the other hand, although Tsang, Zhou Di, Huang Fuju, and Yi Zhaoxian had exceptional talents, they were only able to succeed because they coincided with the general trend of martial Dao in the primary upper realm. If the four of them existed in the primary upper realm, they were powerless when the primary upper realm was just formed. However, the problem they faced was not a problem when placed in the myriad realms. Not to mention that they had arrived at a grand occasion organized by Mountain Xuanji of the Dian world. Ugh, Brother Tian, it's not easy either, Ji Xian said softly. He was only a peak ruler realm. How could he achieve the Heaven Highness realm and become a Supreme Highness in 5 months? You piece of trash, shut up. The spirit of the celestial pole list rolled its eyes and scolded. So, Shao Ji, the two of you, wait until you can break through to the Supreme Empyrean level. If there's still a lot of time left and you're confident, you might as well push back. Suppress them and strive to break through to the Supreme Empyrean realm with a stronger Empyrean realm. Qin Nan and Empyrean Long Ra both understood in their hearts that the Empyrean was divided into 4 realms: self, knowledge, heaven, and Tao. A transcendent Empyrean, who was a self-realm Empyrean, was definitely unable to be compared to a transcendent Empyrean, who was a Tao realm Empyrean. Moreover, even if they couldn't break through to the celestial Venerate realm, there were countless treasures and opportunities in this place. If they could obtain a powerful opportunity, they could become even stronger after becoming a celestial Venerate. If he could slow down, it would be best to slow down. The 4 of us will split up for now and see if we can obtain a great inheritance. Of course, if we come across any shocking inheritances, we'll gather again. Also, if your life is in danger, send a message immediately. The rest of us will be wiped out. Do your best to help. The spirit of the celestial pole list added. Qin Nan and the other 2 all agreed. The immortal lights immediately quieted down and stopped sending messages to each other. Instead, they focused on searching for opportunities. Qin Nan's figure flickered, and he arrived at the peak of the mountain. After refining the 5 immortal trees at the same time, the aura he exuded immediately became stronger. On top of that, he gradually comprehended the celestial demon war diagrams nurtured by the immortal trees and formed a brand new divine ability that was extremely powerful. In these 5 months, I have to think of a way to break through to the heaven realm, Qin Nan thought to himself. Although he had been tricked by the Blue Dome Master, the things that the Master of the Blue Dome Master had told him shouldn't be false. He could only return to the future and defeat Tsang after becoming a Supreme Empyrean realm Empyrean. After making up his mind, Qin Nan immediately got up and prepared to fly forward. Suddenly, a dazzling divine light streaked across the sky at an astonishing speed. Qin Nan raised his head and saw a talisman amidst the light. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He waved his hand and burst out with a majestic force, forcibly sweeping the talisman over. As his divine sense probed it, a vigorous voice immediately echoed in his mind. Fellow cultivator, I am Luo Chuan, a core disciple of the true Yang Immortal Palace. I have discovered an ancient god's tomb, and there is suspected to be a peerless treasure inside. However, not many experts from the true Yang Immortal Palace have come this time. Our forces are still weak, and we are unable to open the tomb. If you are interested, you might as well activate this talisman and come to open the tomb together. After entering the tomb, whether you can obtain the treasure will depend on your own strength. Qin Nan's eyes lit up when he heard this. Even though he had no idea how strong the ancient god in the ancient god's tomb was, Qin Nan had a feeling that the tomb was nothing ordinary. That being said, it could also be a conspiracy. Perhaps the person called Luo Chuan was purposely using this method to lure a bunch of cultivators into the tomb so he could kill them all. However, the possibility of that was relatively low. After the arcana of the Great Yen World Mountain was opened, only those below the Heaven Highness realm and those above the Heaven Highness realm were allowed to enter. Those above the Heaven Highness realm would have to seal their cultivation if they wanted to enter the place. It was impossible to kill a lot of cultivators in the same realm. Besides, Luo Chuan had no idea who his talisman would end up in, or what kind of people he would attract. Let's go and take a look. Qin Nan immediately made up his mind. He inserted his force into the talisman. Following a bang, the talisman turned into an illusionary bird that flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Qin Nan followed closely behind it. Half an hour later, Qin Nan saw a spacious land in the distance. It was shrouded in an eerie black mist. Even the light of the stars in the heavens was unable to illuminate the mist. It felt eerie to him. Occasionally, one could even see the silhouettes of huge creatures shuttling through the black fog, causing one to involuntarily feel a chill in one's heart. The ancient god's tomb is real. Qin Nan made up his mind and continued to follow the giant bird. Soon, Qin Nan saw a 999 zhang tall gate standing in the middle of the black mist. The gate was engraved with the image of a young man with a blurred face slaying a 10-clawed golden dragon. It was filled with an intimidating aura. This gate should be the entrance to the ancient god's tomb. The dragon-slaying young man was most likely the ancient god that was buried here. Qin Nan looked in another direction. There were already more than 20 figures in front of the gate. Their auras were basically at the Heaven Highness realm. In addition, there were several powerful auras in the sky in the distance. They must have been attracted by the talisman. Chapter 2491. These familiar figures were Reverend Hong Yen and his companions, whom Qin Nan and his companions had met when they had just arrived at the Great Evolution World Mountain. "Did you really deceive young Master Zhenli and the others?" the girl named Xiao Er asked subconsciously. Hearing this, the hearts of the cultivators shuddered as they glanced at Qin Nan. "Xiao Er, do you know him? Is he Lin Xiaoji?" A young man in a blue robe glanced at Qin Nan too. His eyes flickered as he asked. He was Luo Chuan, a prodisciple of the True Sun Immortal Palace. Although he was not on the list of 10,000 realms and could not be compared to young Master Zhenli and the others, he was still a genius. The True Sun Immortal Palace was one of the major powers in the myriad realms. "I don't have that ability." Qin Nan shook his head and denied it. "Yes, you are a barbarian from a remote place. How could you be the great thief who deceived young Master Zhenli and the other geniuses? The great thief must have used your name after deceiving young Master Zhenli and the others." Xiao Er reacted, and a look of disgust flashed across her eyes. She sent a message to Luo Chuan and told him about her encounter with Lin Xiaoji. "Oh? Taoist Lin seems to be very unlucky to have his name stolen by such a villain," Luo Chuan said and did not look at Qin Nan again. Apparently, he did not believe that a barbarian who did not even know about the Great Evolution World Mountain could deceive young Master Zhenli and the other geniuses. Of course, although he did not take Qin Nan seriously, he did not expel Qin Nan. After all, Qin Nan was a holy master and could contribute to the attack on the ancient god's tomb. After entering the tomb, he could even block an Archean killing intent for them. Just someone with the same name? Some of the cultivators immediately looked disappointed and suppressed their murderous intent. It should be known that although young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the other geniuses had not issued any bounties, if they had really suppressed the villain and handed him over to young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the other geniuses, they would have been able to take him. They would owe them a favor. That would be a great opportunity for him. However, the eyes of a few cultivators flickered as they made up their minds to find a chance to test Qin Nan's strength. "Young friend Lin, you should leave quickly." Venerable Hong Yen came back to his senses and whispered, "Although young Master Luo Chuan has dispelled his suspicions of you being replaced by that scoundrel, the others might still hold the thought of killing by mistake rather than letting you go. It's very likely that this will be detrimental to you." Indeed, after Xiao had exposed his identity, Qin Nan had felt several killing intent. Senior, don't worry. Although I come from a remote place, I have my own trump cards. I have no problem protecting myself, Qin Nan said with a smile. Revered Elder Hong Yen knew that he couldn't persuade Lin Fan otherwise. He could only apologize. Little friend Lin, I'm really sorry for what happened just now. Xiao doesn't know any better. She exposed your name and caused you trouble. Qin Nan shook his head and said, Senior, it's nothing serious. You don't have to feel bad about it. By the way, Senior, is there anything special about the ancient god's tomb? While the two were talking, more cultivators arrived one after another. Soon, there were 29 of them. Fellow cultivators, we'll be able to break the tomb with just 2 more people. Luo Chuan glanced at the crowd and said. Most of the cultivators that had arrived were not well known. Although they were all in the Heaven Highness realm, their auras and background were not as strong as Luo Chuan's. Luo Chuan happened to be the one who had initiated the operation, thus he felt like he was the backbone of the group. I've come at the right time. Suddenly, a calm voice was heard. A young man with a pale golden halberd slowly walked over from the distant sky. His entire body was emitting a shocking demonic aura, as if he was one of the 10 great demons. He was a transformed beast. The aura emitted by this person was even stronger than Luo Chuan's. Furthermore, there was a black flower on his forehead that looked like a flame, giving off an extremely mysterious feeling. Is that the 9 Underworlds' flame flower? A disciple of the 9 Underworlds' palace? The cultivators were shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the young man. The 9 Underworlds' palace was one of the great factions in the heavens. Its strength was even stronger than the true Yang Immortal Palace. Qin Nan was startled. He took a closer look and discovered that the 9 Underworlds' flame flower was indeed extraordinary. It seemed to contain an endless amount of 9 Underworlds' flame. Once it was unleashed, it could burn the heavens to ashes. May I know your name? Luo Chuan asked politely while bringing his fists together. You're not bad to know my name. I'm Meng Changhun. The young man glanced at him and nodded. I'm Luo Chuan, Luo Chuan said with a smile. Cultivator Meng is a disciple of the 9 Underworlds' palace. Your strength must be extraordinary. If that's the case, there's no need for us to wait any longer. We can attack the ancient god's tomb together. After saying that, Luo Chuan's body suddenly emitted 3 layers of divine light. A divine sword covered in countless golden ancient runes soared into the sky from his back. It unleashed a monstrous sword intent and slashed at the door. Bang! The door shuddered. The painting of a young man slaying a dragon began to emit a godly glow as if it had come alive. A wild aura burst out of it and loomed over the cultivators, as if it was going to slay them like dragons, just like the painting. Die. Attack. Meng Changhun and the rest of the cultivators immediately executed various martial arts to attack Qin Nan. Qin Nan executed an art of Tao seeking too. He raised his hand and fired wisps of snow-white saber intent. Even though the door of the great necropolis was quite extraordinary, its glow dimmed rapidly under the combined attacks of the cultivators. In less than 1,000 breaths' time, it was shattered into pieces with a bang. A faintly discernible ancient pressure, as well as a decaying aura, immediately swept out from within. Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, and the rest of the cultivators had been waiting for a long time. They turned into rays of light and went inside the door as soon as it was destroyed. Chapter 2492. In front of them was a blood-red land. It was as if a shocking battle had taken place here. The land was filled with potholes and countless skeletons. The wills of various powerful spells reverberated in the void and did not dissipate for a long time. There were also various Dharma treasures and weapons scattered on the ground. There were various kinds of faint lights. Not only that, in some of the places where the killing intent was overwhelming, there were even some ancient trees and strange flowers that took advantage of the situation to grow. They swayed with the wind and exuded extraordinary auras. Look, those Dharma treasures are all third-grade immortal artifacts. A cultivator in the peak Heavenly Venerate realm discovered something and his eyes lit up. After experiencing the sword exchange convention, Qin Nan had some understanding of the Dharma treasures in the universe. Immortal artifacts were divided into 9 grades, with first grade being the weakest and 9th grade being the strongest. A third-grade immortal artifact could be exchanged for 3 heavenly demonic stones from the Master of the Blue Dome. The Desolate Stone. Although a third-grade immortal artifact was definitely not worth that much in terms of its actual value, it was not too far off. From this, one could see the value of a third-grade immortal artifact. A Heavenly Venerate realm cultivator could not sit still and watch. Suddenly, a peak Heavenly Venerate realm cultivator exclaimed, "Although that ancient sword and that small pagoda are broken, the aura they emit has reached the level of a 4th-grade immortal artifact." In front of the ground, a broken black longsword and a small glazed pagoda that was densely covered with cracks lay quietly on the ground. Their light flickered intermittently. Although they did not display any power, they still possessed an astonishing aura that made people feel like they were kings who looked down on the whole world. One should know that even a broken 4th-grade immortal artifact was far more valuable and powerful than a 3rd-grade immortal artifact. Moreover, a 4th-grade immortal artifact was usually quite difficult to find. If one was not a disciple from a powerful faction, it was impossible for an ordinary Heavenly Venerate to possess one. Whoosh! Luo Chuan and Meng Chang-hun reacted almost at the same time. They unleashed their shocking auras and dashed toward the 2 broken 4th-grade immortal artifacts. Attack! The cultivators immediately collected their thoughts and swarmed toward the battlefield like locusts, executing all kinds of martial arts and martial arts. Although there were only a few Grade 4 and Grade 3 immortal artifacts here, almost all of the remaining Dharma treasures were Grade 2 immortal artifacts. There were also many Grade 2 immortal artifacts that were in good condition. If he could take a few of them, it would be completely possible. It was truly a Grade 3 immortal artifact. All of a sudden, the entire blood-red battlefield began to tremble slightly. A faint, sinister laugh echoed in all directions. Illusionary figures that were entirely black in color and looked like a mix of humans and demons charged out from the ground and extended their sharp claws. He grabbed at all the cultivators. Caught off guard, many cultivators cried out in pain as they suffered heavy blows. This is the triple ultimate Ein Soul. Some knowledgeable Empyrean powerhouses immediately recognized the origins of these existences, and their expressions immediately changed. So many of them? The rest of the people were also greatly shocked. The triple ultimate Ein Soul was a special kind of living being that was formed naturally. They did not possess any intelligence, and were extremely murderous. Most martial arts were unable to harm them. If there were only a few dozen triple ultimate Ein Souls, they could easily crush them with their current formation. However, there were over 10,000 of them, like an army of Ein Souls. Break! At this moment, Luo Chuan let out a thunderous shout. He had donned a Grade 2 immortal level battle armor. His entire body was glowing with a golden glow, making him look like a golden god of war. He pointed his finger forward, and 9 different ancient characters struck the souls in front of him like a peerless decree. That's right. We can use the ancient words we heard from the Immortal Emperor's lecture to eliminate these Ein Souls with ease. Many of the Empyrean exalts reacted at the same time and unleashed their killing move. All of them were accompanied by 7 to 3 ancient characters that swept across the crowd. The Ein Souls. It's working. Many were overjoyed. They had managed to eliminate a few of the Ein Souls with a simple attack. It was as easy as blowing off dust. Qin Nan was even more disappointed upon seeing this. It was a pity that he was not fated to stumble into the great heaven evolution scripture. He had only learned a single ancient word. These ancient words were extremely useful. It would be a lot more difficult for him to acquire them in the future since he had only learned a few of them. Forget it, at least there's one. It would be troublesome if there wasn't even one. Qin Nan shook his head. He recalled the word immortal that he saw and prepared to attack too. At that instant, a bell chimed in Qin Nan's heart all of a sudden. Countless immortal rays appeared out of nowhere and gathered deep inside his divine sense, forming the character immortal that seemed both illusionary and real at the same time. Qin Nan was startled. He immediately sensed that the word immortal was written by a peerless immortal emperor. Each stroke contained a peerless heavenly might. Even he felt a great pressure from it. Is this word immortal different from the other ancient words? Is there something special about it? Qin Nan's heart shuddered. He recalled that the word immortal was the first word that the 10 immortal emperors had uttered, thus it had a special ranking. Qin Nan was slightly excited. He immediately unleashed his divine sense and tried to activate the word immortal to test its power. However, to his surprise, the word immortal emitted wisps of pure immortal glow that entered his eyes like dragons. What's going on? Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. He soon discovered that his eyes remained the same. His eye technique did not improve either, as if nothing had happened. While Qin Nan was confused, he suddenly saw a cultivator less than 3 li away executing the 3 ancient words. It felt like they were magnified 10 times in his eyes, as the strokes, curls, and dots of the words became extremely clear, revealing the meaning behind them. All kinds of secrets and meanings of the words appeared in Qin Nan's mind. With a single glance, Qin Nan felt like he had memorized the 3 ancient words and was able to execute them. I can comprehend them? Qin Nan was astounded. If that was the case, Brother Tian, I don't have enough ancient words. Can I comprehend the words of others? Qin Nan withheld his emotions and quickly transmitted his voice to the immortal glow in his body. Xiao Ji, don't overthink it. You can only comprehend the words from the immortal emperors. You won't be able to comprehend them from others. You won't be able to use them after leaving the great evolution world mountain, the spirit of the celestial pole list said earnestly. Chapter 2493. Qin Nan completely ignored Ji Xian's words. He could not help but feel excited. He really did not expect that this immortal character actually had such a mysterious ability. In other words, if he observed enough cultivators, wouldn't he be able to learn all the characters? Perhaps he could even learn the great sky evolution scriptures that were explained by the 10 immortal emperors? That was the great sky evolution scriptures, the supreme art of the great sky evolution sect, an ancient faction. Calm down, calm down. Qin Nan took a deep breath and began to observe the 3 words written by the cultivator. Each character seemed to be formed by the great Tao, granting them an endless magical power. As a matter of fact, even with Qin Nan's insane martial talent, it was impossible for him to see through the characters so quickly. However, under the magical power of the character, it felt like he was able to see through the secrets of the characters with a single glance. In less than 20 breaths, he had completely mastered it. At the same time, immortal rays appeared out of nowhere and gathered beside the character, forming the characters that Qin Nan had just learned. However, the 3 characters were less than 1/10 the size of the character. They surrounded the character. It really works. Qin Nan's heart pounded heavily. Let's take a look at the characters of the others. Qin Nan shifted his gaze onto the cultivator around 10 li away from him. Qin Nan frowned slightly. The feeling he had before did not appear this time. What was going on? Could it only be used once? Or could it be that I was able to see the characters clearly because I was too close to the cultivator? Could it be that I couldn't see the characters clearly because I was too far away? Qin Nan thought of a possibility. He immediately dodged the phantoms and approached the cultivator. Sure enough, when he was only 1.5 kilometers away from the cultivator, the 4 ancient characters that the cultivator had grasped suddenly magnified dozens of times in his eyes, becoming incomparably clear. Nice! Qin Nan exclaimed in his heart as he swiftly comprehended the characters. A series of explosions took place on the battlefield as Luo Chuan and Meng Chuanhun fought one another, resulting in shocking gusts of wind as they tried to claim the 2 damaged 4th-grade immortal weapons. As for Qin Nan, he completely shifted his focus away from the artifacts after discovering the effects of the characters. He was moving closer to the cultivators like the phantoms. Different characters have different powers, not all of them are the same. Many of the ancient characters that these people have comprehended are overlapping. Holy crap, why are there so many overlapping characters? While Qin Nan was comprehending the process, he was also observing the surroundings. As time gradually passed, the crowd was gradually aware of Qin Nan's strange behavior. K me. Is there something wrong with him? Just now, you suddenly approached me and gave me a fright. I thought you were going to attack me. He gave me a scare too. What's going on? How did he suddenly get close to that fellow Taoist and then the other fellow Taoist? He's not even trying to claim the artifacts. What is he trying to do? In addition to that, when Qin Nan approached a Peak Heaven Highness Realm woman in a red outfit, the woman was enraged. Piss off, stay away from me. The woman immediately threw a punch at Qin Nan. She had assumed Qin Nan to be a pervert after seeing Qin Nan's strange behavior. Qin Nan dodged the attack with a flicker and said helplessly, I don't mean you any harm, why are you attacking me? Besides, your characters are overlapping too. He turned around and left, heading for the next person. The woman was even more enraged. Even though she did not understand what Qin Nan meant by overlapping, she could feel that the pervert was looking down on her. On the battlefield, Xiao Hongyan and the others were standing not far away from Luo Chuan, killing the enemies and competing for the artifacts. She happened to see this, and the disdain in her eyes deepened. Humph, a barbarian will always be a barbarian. His actions are disgusting. Qin Nan did not notice her gaze. His figure flashed continuously, and he had already finished reading the ancient characters of nearly 20 cultivators. The number of ancient characters in his knowledge had also reached 25. I hope Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun's ancient characters are different. Qin Nan shifted his gaze toward the 2 figures fighting. In his line of sight, Xiao Venerable Hongyan and the others were also present. Is this barbarian coming toward us? Xiao face instantly turned cold, and disgust appeared in her eyes. At this moment, there was a loud rumble in front of the battlefield. A cloud of red fog exploded, and a faintly discernible ancient door appeared. There was a faint pressure coming from inside. After Luo Chuan's attack, he quickly retreated and said, Cultivator Meng, why don't we take one each, and then explore the ancient god's tomb together? Meng Changhun harumphed and said, I'll let you go this time. The 2 retrieved the ancient sword and the pagoda, before heading toward the ancient door. Qin Nan immediately followed behind them. The entrance, the real treasure must still be inside. The other cultivators collected their thoughts too. Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, and the others were the first to enter the ancient door and disappeared. A moment later, Qin Nan entered the ancient door too. Qin Nan immediately saw 99 pitch-black paths appearing in front of them, leading to unknown places in the black mist. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun immediately took out different artifacts and activated them to deduce the paths. They already had a few answers in their mind. They communicated with each other with their divine sense to make a decision. As expected of the geniuses of formidable factions, they're well prepared with all kinds of artifacts, Qin Nan murmured. Suddenly, the word immortal in his divine sense shuddered and unleashed a wisp of immortal chi in the direction of the 13th path. The word immortal can lead the way? Qin Nan was startled. Meanwhile, Luo Chuan and Meng Chang-hun picked a path among the 5 paths they had deduced, which happened to be the 13th path. They immediately flew toward it. The word immortal is really useful, Qin Nan murmured. His eyes flickered as he raised his gaze. He did not expect the cultivators to pick the 13th path. If that was the case, he would have a chance to observe their words. Chapter 2494. Martial Highness Red Yen was startled. He snapped, "Xiao, watch your words." Xiao was not afraid of him. She said with a hollow laugh, "Elder, did I say anything wrong? You can ask this barbarian why he chose this path." Martial Highness Red Yen wore an awkward expression. In his opinion, Qin Nan had only chosen this path because of Luo Chuan and Meng Chang-hun. Luo Chuan glanced at Qin Nan and said with a smile, "Xiao, enough with the nonsense. Since Cultivator Lin is with us, let's go together." Meng Chang-hun remained silent. He had already sensed Qin Nan following them with his divine sense, but he did not think much of it. In his opinion, only Luo Chuan of the True Sun Immortal Palace was worthy enough to be his opponent. The group moved forward and disappeared into the black fog in less than 2 breaths' time. The cultivators behind them cursed their bad luck when they saw this. They couldn't believe that they couldn't get a share of the 2 geniuses tricked. The ancient path was not very long. Luo Chuan, Meng Chang-hun, and the others advanced for about 1,000 breaths of time before light appeared in front of them. The faintly discernible pressure also became heavier, causing the group to feel an invisible pressure. Qin Nan had learned the ancient god's cultivation from the conversation between Martial Highness Red Yen and Martial Highness Red Yen. The ancient god was just a title in the heavens. It was not a specific cultivation, but it was roughly equivalent to the Supreme Highness Realm and the Supreme Highness Realm. They had reached the level where they could roam the heavens. The ancient god was most likely a disciple of the Great Evolution Heaven sect in the past. However, they had no idea why his tomb was buried in the Great Evolution World Mountain and why it had only shown up now. The group soon went through the light and landed on the ground. Xiao lifted her gaze and exclaimed. Luo Chuan, Meng Chang-hun, and the others were astounded too. They were currently inside a dark palace. A coffin was floating in front of them. The shocking aura was coming from the coffin. It was suffocating. In addition to that, beside the coffin floated a green ancient sword, a stone book, and a stone pond with dense immortal chi floating inside. This is actually a complete Grade 7 celestial artifact. Luo Chuan's voice trembled slightly. Grade 7 immortal artifact? Qin Nan's mind was also shaken, and he carefully observed it. Sure enough, there were 7 different celestial lights swimming around the body of the sword, giving off an incomparably sharp feeling, as if it could cut through everything in the world. However, this sword should have been sealed by a huge force, so it didn't show the power of a 7th grade immortal artifact, so Qin Nan didn't notice it just now. Roar. Suddenly, a muffled roar sounded from the depths of the hall. A ferocious beast with 3 dragon heads and scales, emitting a cold glow, walked out from the cave. Its bloodthirsty eyes stared at Qin Nan and his crew, filled with murderous intent. Behind this great demon, there was a 2-meter-tall demon ape covered in red fur, and a giant tortoise with an ancient shell on its back and dense fangs. Even though the 2 beasts were nowhere close to the dragon-headed beasts, their auras were quite terrifying too. It's a 3-headed tiger dragon, a red ghoul ape, and a heavenly demon tortoise. Hong Yen was the first to react. He took a few steps back and said, "They are all ancient rare species. Their bloodlines are extremely powerful. Ordinary heaven highnesses are no match for them. They are our opponents." Xiao and the others were startled by the murderous aura. Even Luo Chuan and Meng Chang-hun straightened their faces. Don't worry, even though they are 3 ancient rare species, we have the ancient words. We should be able to suppress them. If we join forces, we will definitely be able to defeat it. Luo Chuan shouted in a low voice. The weapon before them was a 7th grade immortal artifact. They had to give it their all. That's right, let's do it together. Meng Chonghuan's eyes flickered. He immediately executed a martial art and threw a punch forward. Over 10 illusionary figures of ancient dragons roared at the same time. Each of the dragons was entangled with ancient words. Roar! The 3 ancient rare species uttered a roar and charged forward, executing terrifying attacks. Bang bang bang! A great battle instantly took place, causing the entire hall to vibrate vigorously. Here's my chance. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. He immediately observed the ancient words that the others were using. This Luo Chuan is indeed different from Meng Chonghun. Most of the ancient words he obtained do not overlap with each other. A thought crossed Qin Nan's mind. It turned out that his speculation was right. Those who were more talented would be able to obtain more ancient words. I wonder if anyone has obtained the first immortal character like me? Qin Nan murmured. The battle in the hall continued. Just as Luo Chuan had mentioned, after the ancient words were added, they were able to inflict more damage on the 3 ancient rare species. The flesh of the 3 ancient rare species was extremely strong. Ordinary Heaven Highnesses could not possibly inflict any damage on them. However, they could easily leave a bloody mark on their bodies with a single attack. Even so, they were only on par with the 3 ancient rare species. They had a slight advantage over them. You savage, why aren't you attacking yet? Are you trying to watch us fight the ancient rare species until both sides are severely injured, so you can reap the benefits? The girl called Xiao was enraged when she realized that Qin Nan was staring at them. She could not help but yell angrily. Cultivator Lin, you've crossed the line. Luo Chuan said coldly. Ugh! Qin Nan finally reacted. He was about to say that he was not interested in the 7th grade immortal artifact when the hall began to change again. The motionless coffin suddenly emitted rays of red light, which flowed into the bodies of the 3 ancient rare beasts like a stream of water. The injuries of the 3 ancient xenogeneics were immediately healed. In addition to that, their bodies began to expand rapidly, and the red glow in their eyes grew brighter. Kakik, the 3 ancient rare species, burst out laughing. They were looking at Luo Chuan and the others as if they were looking at a bunch of dead people. Crap! Luo Chuan and the others were startled. They could feel that the auras of the 3 archaic xenogeneics were continuously rising, making them feel a great sense of danger. Back off! Luo Chuan and Meng Chonghun immediately changed their minds. Even though a 7th grade immortal artifact was an outstanding artifact, they had to be alive to enjoy it. Chapter 2495. It was obvious that this was a sure-kill situation. Furthermore, the person who set this up understood human nature very well. First, they let the 3 archaic xenogeneics lower their guard before surrounding them in one fell swoop. Roar! The 3 Archean xenogeneics charged at them once again. Their overwhelming demonic aura slammed into the group like a raging ocean. 3 powerful demonic arts turned into 3 cold, killing intents, like the blades of the Grim Reaper, aiming to take away their lives. Their lives. Tri-Solar Sky Sword Art. Underworld Flames. Luo Chuan, Meng Chonghun, and the rest immediately reacted and executed their strongest move. The former took out a 4th grade immortal sword and slashed out countless sword cheese, while the latter's glabella shone brightly with countless flames gushing out. The rest also unleashed their trump cards at this crucial moment of life and death. At this point, they could only fight with all their might to seize a chance of survival. Boom! Boom! However, the support that the 3 Archean xenogeneics received was far beyond everyone's imagination. Even with the support of the ancient characters, they were still like invincible demon sovereigns. With just their physical bodies, they tore apart the sword Qi and extinguished the sea of fire. They used their boundless demonic intent to suppress the various immortal artifacts. Suddenly, the 3 tiger dragons opened their mouths and spat out 3 demonic immortal lights. Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, and the rest narrowed their eyes. However, the demonic immortal lights were too fast for them to dodge, so they could only choose to face them head-on. Boom! A loud explosion was heard, followed by a strong gust of wind. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun, who were leading the group, were hit hard and were forced to retreat. Blood flowed out from the corner of their mouths, and their faces were slightly pale. When the others saw this scene, they felt a chill in their hearts, especially the girl named Xiao. Her face was pale, without a trace of blood. These 3 Archean xenogeneics were too terrifying. Even brother Luo Chuan, who was comparable to a deity in her heart, could not stop them, so how could they? After showing off their power, the 3 Archean xenogeneics' auras rose once again as they continued to execute their powerful demonic arts toward the group. At this moment, the entire hall was suffused with a faint red glow. An invisible force began to support the 3 Archean xenogeneics, causing their bodies to be like mountains, as if they could swallow the heavens and the moon. Not good. The expressions of Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, and the others changed drastically. Under such circumstances, how could they resist? In the nick of time, 3 brilliant saber glows arrived as if they had traveled a great distance. They shattered the attacks of the 3 ancient xenogeneics into pieces, while the remaining saber intents continued to charge at the 3 ancient xenogeneic. Roar! The 3 ancient xenogeneics felt a huge pressure. They roared and attacked with their palms. This is Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, and the others were all stunned. Who did this? He could actually fight 3 ancient xenogeneics head-on? Shua! Then, they saw a human figure soar into the sky. Like a peerless divine king, he unleashed a monstrous aura. He unleashed 3 different divine powers, attacking the 3 ancient xenogeneic. It's you? Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, and the others, especially the girl named Xiao, could not believe their eyes. Wasn't this person a shameless person who wanted to hide behind them and wait for both sides to be injured before taking advantage of them? But now, he had charged forward himself? In the nick of time, Qin Nan made his move once again. He threw a punch forward, executing a few different divine powers simultaneously. In addition to that, there were 32 different ancient words wrapped around the martial art. The originally ferocious 3 primordial mutants seemed to have met their natural enemy at this moment, and their huge bodies began to tremble violently. In their eyes, the 3 divine powers that Qin Nan had executed were like the punishment of a god. They possessed a destructive power. Roar! In the nick of time, the 3 ancient xenogeneics unleashed all their power and executed their innate divine arts to soar into the sky. Bang bang bang! A shocking sight took place. The 3 ancient xenogeneics seemed to have lost their ferocious aura. They could not even withstand a single blow from Qin Nan. They were crushed into a bloody mist in the blink of an eye and scattered in all directions. Qin Nan was stunned seeing this. Did he just kill them instantly? Even if I unleash my full strength, I'm afraid I'll only be able to defeat these 3 primordial exotic beasts. I didn't expect it to be so effective after I merged the ancient words with them. Qin Nan was extremely excited as he collected his thoughts. There was also a very important point. He did not activate the immortal character when he attacked. In Qin Nan's opinion, the remaining 32 ancient words were more than enough. There was no need for him to use the immortal character. If he added the word immortal, what kind of scene would that be? He could easily eliminate the 3 ancient xenogeneics with a flick of his finger, right? At this moment, the entire hall fell into a dead silence. How is this possible? How is this possible? Isn't he a barbarian? How did he? Xiao was lost in her thoughts. Was he really the barbarian that she had always looked down on? Even brother Luo Chuan, who was like a deity in her heart, was incomparable to the man in front of her. 32 Ancient Words. He mastered a total of 32 ancient words from the immortal emperor's speech. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun were greatly shocked. Their faces were filled with disbelief. What did it mean to master 32 ancient words? Even the famous geniuses on the 10,000 realms, ranking like young Master Zhen Li and Yen Danqing, might not have mastered all 32 ancient words. How was he a barbarian? He was clearly a peerless genius. Among the crowd, Honorable Hong Yen was the first to recover from the shock. He said excitedly, "My young friend, you've hidden your strength well. I didn't expect you to be a peerless genius who could kill 3 ancient xenogeneics with one move." Qin Nan turned around and said with a smile, "Senior, I'm not a peerless genius. I didn't expect the ancient words to have such a great effect on the demonic beast." Honorable Hong Yen exclaimed, "My young friend, don't be so humble. Mastering 32 ancient words is not something an ordinary person can do." Meng Changhun also came to his senses. He stepped forward and cupped his fist solemnly. "Thank you for saving my life." Chapter 2496. Even though the heavens and realms were many times stronger than the primary upper realm, many things were still the same. Hong Yen turned around and looked at Xiu'er, whose face was turning pale. He yelled, "Xiu'er, why aren't you thanking your brother Lin? If it wasn't for him, we would all be dead by now." He might look stern on the surface, but he was actually quite pleased on the inside. Xiu'er had always been a little snobbish. He had tried to convince her not to judge a book by its cover, but she never listened. Now, she should understand why, right? Xiu'er's figure trembled. Words could not describe the emotions in her heart. "Senior, there's no need for that." Qin Nan waved his hand and said, "Fellow cultivators, there's no need for that. We've come here together, so we should help each other when we're in trouble." Saying this, Qin Nan went up and grabbed the 7th grade immortal weapon. He unleashed the 32 ancient words and forcibly removed the seal on the weapon. Buzz! The entire ancient sword seemed to have undergone a great transformation. It erupted with a shocking sword intent, and a bright green light illuminated the entire hall. Everyone felt a chill running down their spines, as if they were about to be slashed in half. A 7th grade immortal weapon is indeed extraordinary, Qin Nan exclaimed. With such an immortal weapon, he could easily crush anyone in the same cultivation level. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun's eyes flickered with astonishment. However, they did not dare to act recklessly. Qin Nan was able to take on 3 ancient rare beasts before using the ancient words. It was obvious that Qin Nan's strength had surpassed theirs. Qin Nan was most likely a powerful heaven highness who had achieved the ground discerning realm. Besides, if Qin Nan were to use the ancient words, even though they would not be greatly suppressed, they would still be no match for him. Qin Nan glanced at the pond. The pond was filled with faint blue water. Each drop contained an extremely pure energy. It was a valuable resource. As for the jade slip, it should be a cultivation method left behind by the ancient god. Suddenly, the character immortal in Qin Nan's divine sense emitted a red glow. Qin Nan immediately sensed that the patterns on the coffin not far from him were awakened and began to glow. "There's a change in the coffin?" Everyone's eyes were fixed on the coffin, and they were on guard. Following this, the lid of the coffin opened without any sign. A brilliant red glow burst out from the coffin and encapsulated Qin Nan's figure at a shocking pace. What is this?" Qin Nan was slightly startled. Just as he was about to use the great Tongtian spell, he saw the immortal character in his sea of consciousness suddenly erupt with a powerful suction force, sucking in all of the red light. Brother Lin Lao. In the eyes of others, they did not know the changes in Qin Nan's body at all. They only thought that Qin Nan was attacked by the coffin. Martial Highness Hong Yen was startled. He immediately executed a technique to grab Qin Nan. The red light shuddered and unleashed a tremendous force, shattering the technique into pieces. Crap! Reverend Hong Yan's expression immediately turned ugly. Through the attack just now, he could sense that the red light contained an extremely powerful and invisible force. It was not something he could provoke. What should I do? Martial Highness Hong Yan's heart was in a mess as he tried to come up with a solution. At that instant, he saw two figures dashing toward Qin Nan at the same time. They were Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun. What are you trying to do? Reverend Hong Yan's expression changed as he shouted in a thunderous voice. Cultivator Lin is most likely going to die after being attacked by the coffin. Martial Highness Hong Yan, lend me a hand and stop Meng Changhun. Once we've retrieved the 7th grade immortal weapon, we'll leave this place at once. Luo Chuan yelled. Meanwhile, Qin Nan attacked Meng Changhun. In your dreams! Meng Changhun's figure tensed as he executed various moves to clash with Qin Nan. Martial Highness Hong Yan was infuriated seeing this. Luo Chuan, Meng Changhun, aren't you two crossing the line? If it weren't for Cultivator Lin, you would have died to the beasts by now. Instead of trying to save him, you're trying to steal the treasures instead? Luo Chuan let out a hollow laugh and said, Martial Highness Hong Yan, don't be so naive. How could Cultivator Lin possibly survive after being attacked by the ancient god's tomb? It doesn't make any difference whether we save him or not. Martial Highness Hong Yan, stop Meng Changhun at once. Once we've retrieved the 7th grade immortal weapon, I'll give you a 5th grade immortal weapon and teach you the cultivation method of the True Yang Immortal Palace. The other people beside Hong Yan Zunsho could not help but exclaim in surprise. A 5th grade immortal weapon and the cultivation method of the True Yang Immortal Palace. It was a shocking fortune. If they had the cultivation method, they would be able to achieve a higher cultivation, and their strength would improve significantly too. Xiao Er's eyes flickered with a blank expression. Was this the big brother Luo Chuan that she had always respected? How could he say such a thing? Luo Chuan, I'm not a shameless person like you. If you want to take Cultivator Lin's immortal weapon, you'll have to step over my dead body first. Martial Highness Hong Yan was like an angry Vajra. He unleashed a powerful aura and attacked the two geniuses with a divine ability. You're going to stop me? Luo Chuan could not believe it. Was this old man crazy? Cultivator Luo, let's work together. We'll split the 7th grade immortal weapon equally. Meng Changhun was delighted to see this. He did not expect someone as foolish as Martial Highness Hong Yan. He immediately sent a divine thought to him. All right. In the blink of an eye, the two had come to an agreement. Both of them took a few steps back, no longer facing off against each other. Both of them turned to look at Sovereign Hong Yan. Hong Yan, for the sake of our friendship, I'll spare your life today. Luo Chuan grunted coldly as he unleashed countless sword intents. Meng Changhun threw a punch forward too, engulfed in underworld flames. Even though they were not going to kill Martial Highness Hong Yan, they were determined to severely injure him with a single blow. Martial Highness Hong Yan's expression changed. Even though he had a strong aura, he was still no match for the two geniuses. Damn it! If Cultivator Lin knows your true colors, he'll never forgive you. Martial Highness Hong Yan growled. He'll never know. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun chuckled coldly. They were not too bothered by it. In their eyes, Qin Nan was already a dead man. Chapter 2497. A terrifying aura soared into the sky from behind the two of them. It was as if the king of an ancient variant species had begun to awaken, causing the two of them to instantly feel a chill in their hearts. They're still alive? Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun were astounded. They immediately made up their minds without any hesitation. Run! The two uttered a roar and executed their life-saving move. They turned into two brilliant rays sprinting toward the entrance of the palace. Trying to run away from me? Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh. He executed the great samsara heaven art and other arts of Tao seeking. Hand of origin! Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun were startled. It felt like the whole place behind them had turned into an enormous hand grabbing at them. How could they possibly resist when the heavens and earth were trying to capture them? Break! Under the aura of death, both of them took out the strongest immortal artifacts in their bodies and unleashed their strongest divine abilities to fight back. Time reversal! Qin Nan flicked his finger all of a sudden, returning the two to their previous positions. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun had a strange feeling. However, they did not have the time to overthink it. They immediately tried to use their immortal weapons and moves against the terrifying hand. Slash! However, Qin Nan had already predicted what they were trying to do. Qin Nan waved his hand and unleashed two peerless saber glows made of the origin force. They immediately slashed at the two with a destructive force. The two tried their best to defend themselves, but they were still left with serious injuries. Their bodies were covered in blood. Cultivator Lin, I'm sorry, please have mercy on us. Otherwise, the true Sun Immortal Palace. Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun were utterly terrified. They immediately begged for mercy. Bang! However, the only response they received was an incomparably overbearing punch. The force of the punch was like an azure dragon as it mercilessly struck their bodies. These two geniuses were immediately killed, without any signs of life left in them. The rest of the people in the palace felt a great chill running down their spines. They did not expect the two geniuses would die just like that. Well done. These shameless bastards deserve to die. Venerable Hong Yen spat, and then he hurriedly looked at Qin Nan and said, Little brother Lin Lao, are you all right? Qin Nan shook his head and said, Senior, you don't have to worry. These red lights didn't hurt me. Qin Nan wasn't lying. The red light that rushed out of the coffin didn't have any malice towards him at all. It was all absorbed by the immortal character. Now, the immortal character in his sea of consciousness was covered in a layer of faint red, which made it seem even more majestic and mysterious. However, Luo Chuan and Meng Changhun mistakenly thought that he was being suppressed and turned hostile in the blink of an eye. Senior, thank you for your help just now. Take this jade slip and this stone pool as a token of my gratitude. Qin Nan flicked his finger, and sent the jade slip and the stone pool away. How can we do that? Reverend Red Yin was startled. The jade slip contained a martial art that was mastered by an ancient god. It was extremely valuable and extraordinary. Senior, if you treat me as a friend, you don't have to be so courteous with me, Qin Nan said with a smile. Qin Nan greatly admired Reverend Hong Yan's character. If it weren't for the fact that he still needed the 7th grade immortal weapon, he would have given it to Reverend Hong Yan too. Well, all right, I won't be so courteous with you then. Reverend Hong Yan hesitated for a moment, but eventually accepted it with a smile. There's something strange about this coffin, Qin Nan said. He fixed his gaze on the coffin and observed it carefully. After all, it was the tomb of an ancient god. He had to be very careful if he was going to open it. It shouldn't be a problem, Qin Nan murmured to himself. He unleashed the 32 ancient characters that circled around him, and reached out his hand to grab the lid of the coffin. Reverend Hong Yen and the others stuck their heads out curiously. Qin Nan opened the lid of the coffin with ease. He didn't encounter any resistance. There's no one inside? Qin Nan was startled. The coffin was completely empty, and only a jade slip that was suffused with a light yellow glow was left inside. An ancient god isn't buried here? The eyes of Reverend Hong Yen and the others widened. They suddenly felt the temperature of the hall dropping significantly, as if something mysterious was staring at them coldly in the darkness. Qin Nan frowned. He took out the scroll and inserted his divine sense into it. A faintly discernible dignified voice suddenly resounded. Since you were able to obtain this jade slip and listen to my voice, then I presume you are the person fated to obtain the Great Heaven Scripture. I was once a descendant of the Great Heaven Evolution sect, but when my bloodline was awakened, I had already ascended to the heavens. I missed the opportunity to learn the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures. I wasn't willing to give up, so I entered the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures after becoming an ancient god, hoping to inherit the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures and reclaim its brilliance. Unfortunately, I was betrayed by a villain and died in the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures. I no longer had the chance. Before I died, I set up this tomb so that the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures could reappear in the world. I've left a map that you can use to head to the Great Heaven Evolution Sacred Hall. If you're able to inherit the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures as I wish, I hope you can help me slay a man called Long Xingyun when your cultivation reaches the highest level. Following it, Qin Nan saw an ancient map. The map was different from the ones he had seen before. It had 3 small worlds stacked on top of one another. The Great Heaven Evolution Sacred Hall was located in the highest small world. I didn't expect the ancient god to be a descendant of the Great Heaven Evolution sect. Qin Nan exclaimed in his heart. He soon became excited. The Great Heaven Evolution sect had 10 immortal emperors in the past. If he was able to acquire the succession of the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures, he would be able to achieve the Great Heaven Evolution Scriptures, or even the Tao Supremacy Realm. Senior, I'll give it a try. Qin Nan thought to himself. He then looked at Venerable Hong Yen and asked, Senior, do you know about the Grand Development Sacred Hall? Venerable Hong Yen was surprised. Grand Development Sacred Hall? The land of inheritance of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect? I've heard of this place before. It's located on the 3rd mountain in Xuanji. As for its exact location, no one in this world knew. Legend has it that only those who are fated can find this place, pass the test, and inherit the Dian inheritance. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat and he asked, What's up with the 3rd level mountain? Could it be that there are other small worlds in this mysterious world? He had always thought that the key to unlocking this time was the peak of the Dian World Mountain, which was a small world. Now, judging from the various clues, it was most likely not the case. Venerable Red Yen chuckled. Brother, you're really something. It's been so many days and you still haven't gotten the information. Do you still remember that when you descended to the mountainside of the Great Evolution World, you didn't find yourself on the mountainside, but rather somewhere else? In a small world? Chapter 2498. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. Senior, do you know how to enter the other small worlds? Is it possible to break through the barrier in the sky? Honorable Red Yen laughed involuntarily. That won't do. Let's not talk about whether you can break through the sky of these small worlds. If you can, you'll only end up in the endless void. Actually, the people of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect had already made preparations when they split the Great Evolution World Mountain into 18 small worlds. In each small world, there were 999 immortal promotion plateaus. You can enter the next small world by passing through one of them. Inside a small world. However, Honorable Red Yen seemed to have thought of something. He frowned and said, Young friend Lin, tell me the truth. Did you obtain something from the ancient god coffin? Do you want to go to the Great Evolution Sacred Palace? Xiao and the others stood to the side obediently, not saying a word. The sudden change had completely shocked them. Now they only had respect for Qin Nan. Qin Nan didn't try to hide it. He nodded and admitted it. Honorable Red Yen said, Young friend Lin, I don't know much about the small world where the Great Evolution Sacred Palace is located. However, I've heard that only the top geniuses from all over the universe would go there. If ordinary people went there, their chances of survival were slim. For example, during the opening of the Profound Mysteries, all of the cultivators who entered the Profound Mysteries stayed in the first and second mountains. None of them entered the third mountain. At this point, Hong Yen Knight paused and said meaningfully, only geniuses like Sir Zhenli and Yen Danqing would consider entering the third-level mountain. Qin Nan nodded and said, Senior, I understand what you mean. If I go to the Great Evolution Sacred Palace in the third mountain, I'll be very careful. Venerable Hong Yen nodded slightly and took out a pale white jade slip from his storage pouch. This jade contains the locations of the immortal promotion plateaus of the first and second mountains. It'll save you a lot of time when the time comes. Qin Nan thanked him, and the two chatted for a while before Qin Nan left. Qin Nan had already made up his mind, so he informed the spirit of the celestial pole list and the others. Brother, I'm not going. I've found an expert, and I'm currently pestering him to teach me the supreme art of divination. Ji Xian's tone was somewhat smug. I've encountered a very large land of inheritance here. I might not be able to leave for the time being. Empyrean Longroi shook his head. TSK. Not bad, kid. The spirit of the celestial pole list praised. I didn't expect you to know the location of the Great Evolution Temple just by randomly entering a tomb. Do you know that the geniuses of many great powers are all working for the Great Development Sacred Hall? They are racking their brains and using all kinds of methods? Qin Nan rolled his eyes and said, Brother Tian, stop talking nonsense. If you want to go, then come with me. If you don't want to go, then forget it. The spirit of the celestial pole list harumphed and said, Kid, you're all grown up now? You dare to talk to me like that? Be careful, we'll suppress you when we return to the primary upper realm. Besides, since you know the location of the temple, how can you not go? I even got a piece of it just then. Where's the keepsake of the Great Development Sacred Hall? Keepsake? What keepsake? I'll show it to you when we meet. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list agreed to meet at the immortal promotion plateau to the west. He immediately turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the sky. I wonder if I can still find that asshole, Qin Nan thought to himself as a cold grin appeared on his face. If he were to stumble into him, he would not let him off so easily. Meanwhile, the first and second mountains were immersed in the flames of war. All kinds of battles were taking place everywhere. There were all kinds of natural resources and artifacts too. When Qin Nan was not far away from the agreed location, he saw an ancient city floating in the sky with various immortal glows. An ancient rare phenomenon was floating at the center of the city. Around 50 to 60 cultivators were fighting in the city with all kinds of moves, resulting in shocking auras. There's a shocking succession in this city. Qin Nan took a closer look and discovered a formidable aura being sealed deep inside the city. Once it was unleashed, it would surely shake the heavens and earth. Forget it, I should head to the Great Development Sacred Hall first. Qin Nan shook his head and gave up on the idea. Suddenly, from the corner of his eyes, he saw a delicate and pretty young man with 3 ancient swords on his back sneakily wandering around the huge city gate. Qin Nan's eyes widened. Wasn't that the guy who had tricked him? Qin Nan immediately turned around and flew toward the entrance of the city. Who's there? The young man raised his head when he sensed an aura locking onto him. Oh? You've already forgotten about your brother Lin Lao? Qin Nan clenched his teeth and said, What kind of big brother are you? The young man said with a blank face, What are you talking about? I don't even know you. Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh and said, Fine, you're pretending to not know me now? Fine, if that's the case, I have nothing else to say. Farewell. Qin Nan took out the 7th grade immortal weapon and left with it. The young man's eyes widened. He quickly grabbed Qin Nan's arm and said, Holy crap! I remember now, isn't that brother Lin Lao? Where did you go? I looked everywhere for you, but I couldn't find you. Qin Nan's face darkened and said, Can you be any more shameless? The young man smiled bitterly and said, "Well, the situation was urgent, so I didn't have time to talk to you, so I had to leave first." Saying this, he stared at the sword in Qin Nan's hand and gulped. "This sword," Qin Nan said calmly. "Do you want it?" The young man nodded vigorously. Chapter 2499. Qin Nan remained calm and asked, "What great creation?" The handsome young man pointed at the towering door and said mysteriously, "You must know about the Great Development Sacred Palace, right? Legend has it that not only is there the supreme inheritance of the Great Development Heavenly Sect, but there is also the inheritance of the 10 great immortal emperors. There is also the supreme secret buried in the World Mountain." Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that the Great Development Sacred Palace was more extraordinary than he had imagined. "So?" Qin Nan asked. "I obtained an ancient token before. According to the information recorded in it, there is an incomplete map of the Great Development Sacred Palace's location in the Immortal City in front of us," the handsome young man said excitedly. "As long as you get this incomplete map and find the rest of the incomplete map, you will know the exact location of the Great Development Sacred Palace. At that time, you will obtain the supreme inheritance of the palace and become a celestial master of the Respond Heaven realm. You may even become a Tao realm celestial master. Do you think this creation is big? Big?" Qin Nan could not help but burst out laughing upon hearing this. The handsome young man was speechless. "What are you laughing at? I am not lying to you. There is really—" Qin Nan did not wait for him to finish and waved his hand to interrupt him. "I believe what you said is true. But I am sorry, I entered an ancient god's tomb not long ago. This ancient god is a descendant of the Great Development Heavenly Sect. I just happened to get it from him. The map of the Great Development Sacred Palace. And it's complete." Qin Nan deliberately emphasized the last 3 words. "Damn? You really have the complete map?" The handsome young man widened his eyes and said angrily, "This damn god is really teasing me. I spent so much effort and only got the incomplete map. In the end, you actually got it in a small ancient god's tomb. You got the complete one." Qin Nan did not answer him. Instead, he shook the immortal sword in his hand and said lightly, "If you want this sword, then you have to exchange for a creation. For example, you promised me before to let me become a celestial master of the Respond Heaven realm." The handsome young man smiled and rubbed his hands. Of course. Didn't I promise you before? Even if you didn't give me this sword, I would have brought you to the Heaven's Response realm." The handsome young man paused for a moment, and his eyes lit up. "Now that you have a complete map, it's a very good opportunity. Let's go to the Great Development Sacred Hall together and take away all the treasures in the hall." I'll take you there. As long as I can obtain that supreme inheritance, breaking through to the Heaven's Response realm will be a cinch." Qin Nan sneered and said, "Why do I feel like I've suffered a loss? Not only will I give you the sword, I will also show you the complete map. As for you, you're just bringing me to that inheritance. I can look for it myself." The handsome young man looked anxious. Just as he was about to say something, a rainbow light suddenly shot over from the distance. An angry voice sounded, "You little brat, you're getting bolder and bolder. You actually dared to leave your brother Tion there and make me wait bitterly." Qin Nan looked back and saw that it was the spirit of the celestial poll list. However, it was different from 10 days ago. Now, the spirit of the celestial poll list was wearing a golden robe. His entire body emitted a mysterious aura that made people feel awe-inspiring. It was obvious that he had gained a lot during this period of time. Who is this brat? The spirit of the celestial poll list looked at the handsome young man and frowned slightly. He could feel that there was an extremely mysterious power in the young man's body that even he could not see through. The handsome young man also raised his head and looked at him. A light flashed in his eyes, and he immediately transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. "Brother, what's the origin of this big brother of yours?" Qin Nan asked curiously. "What did you feel?" The handsome young man shook his head and transmitted his voice. "It's hard to say now. I can't be sure. However, if it's really as I guessed, your brother Tian will definitely be able to amaze the whole universe." Qin Nan's heart trembled slightly. Amaze the whole universe? Although they were currently unable to understand the martial system of the whole universe, from the clues they had obtained, the universe was many times more powerful than the primary upper realm. To amaze the whole universe, how extraordinary and heaven-defying would one have to be? "What are you guessing?" Qin Nan immediately asked. "Don't be curious for now. I can't say for sure." The handsome young man said, "When the time comes, we will go to the Great Development Sacred Hall together and verify it. At that time, you will know." Qin Nan rolled his eyes. Since when did he agree to go to the Great Development Sacred Hall with this guy? After that, Qin Nan told the spirit of the Celestial Pole list about the handsome young man's identity and everything that had happened. Although Wu Di had warned him not to let others know of his existence, now that they had met, it was a different story. The spirit of the Celestial Pole list's eyes flashed and said, "Fellow cultivator, let's not beat around the bush. If we bring you to the Great Development Sacred Hall, how can you help us? Don't give us false promises. Give us something real." The handsome young man chuckled and said, "I have some methods that can bring you to the Great Development Sacred Hall to rob all kinds of natural treasures. Also, it will be very difficult to find the inheritance of the Great Development Sacred Hall with just the two of you, but there is. With my help, there is at least a 50% chance." Qin Nan and the spirit of the Celestial Pole list exchanged glances. "All right. In that case, come with us," the spirit of the Celestial Pole list said straightforwardly. This person was the future master of the Blue Dome. No matter what, he was quite extraordinary. Perhaps he could really help them a lot. "Brother, hurry up and give me the sword. I can't take it anymore." The handsome young man looked at Qin Nan and stared at the sword with burning eyes. It was as if he had seen a peerless fairy. "You promised to bring me to the Heaven's Response realm. Don't worry, leave it to me this time. I won't cheat you." The handsome young man patted his chest and made a solemn vow. In the end, Qin Nan still didn't hand over the sword under the handsome young man's bitter gaze. It wouldn't be too late to wait until the handsome young man fulfilled his promise. Chapter 2500. As soon as he exited the Immortal Ascension Plateau, Qin Nan sharply sensed that the world of the third layer was completely different from the second layer and the first layer. The mysterious, pure aura was at least 10 times stronger than the previous 2 layers. Furthermore, the aura was extremely strong. In the void, there were dozens of extremely ancient wills. Qin Nan raised his head and glanced into the sky. It was still the same magnificent star pattern of the heavens, but unlike the second heavens and the first heavens, at the ends of the east, south, west, and north heavens, there was a faint, illusionary blood-red crescent moon. There were 4 supreme existences overlooking the entire world. "Go that way." After the handsome young man identified the direction according to the map, he pointed forward and the 3 of them flew into the sky. The third layer of heaven seemed to have gone through an earth-shattering war. Almost none of the countless mountains were intact. All of them seemed to have been severed at the waist. They had lost their majestic atmosphere, making people feel incomparably desolate. The boundless earth was covered with curved cracks. They were so deep that the bottom could not be seen. There were even some cracks that emitted waves of ancient ferocious beasts, as well as waves of killing intent that surged out like the 9 nether, causing people to be shocked. It was terrifying. Suddenly, Qin Nan and the spirit of the Celestial Pole list felt a sense of crisis in their hearts. The handsome young man said in a low voice, "Fly into the forest in front. Try your best to conceal your aura. Don't look up, and don't spread out your divine thoughts to sense." Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list immediately did as they were told. In the forest, the three of them seemed to have turned into stone. Their eyes were closed, and there was no aura. Even their breathing was extremely weak, and the sound of their heartbeats could not be heard at all. Although they could not see or sense anything, the three of them could still hear the sounds outside with their ears. Crack, crack, crack. Tens of thousands of sounds like the void shattering rang out. After 100 breaths, there was a deafening roar, as if countless ancient demons were rushing forward. The sound went from near to far, from loud to soft. After a full hour, nothing could be heard anymore. The three of them opened their eyes at the same time. The spirit of the celestial pole list asked, "What was that?" The handsome young man raised his head to look towards the horizon and said, "What appeared earlier was an existence called the Netherworld Spectre. It was rumored that they were once elders and geniuses of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. After the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was destroyed, they were unwilling to accept it and willingly gave up their bodies. His cultivation base and intelligence had completely transformed into a ghost-like existence, existing for eternity only to protect the Great Development Heavenly Sect. If we had been discovered by them, we would have been dead for sure. Only by becoming the successor of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect can I gather this group of ghosts and deities and make them listen to my orders." Qin Nan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What kind of strong obsession would cause them to act like this? The third heaven is the core area of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. This place is filled with all kinds of great strangeness and killing intent. Later on, when we are on the road, you must remember to listen to me, or else you will attract a lot of trouble," the delicate and pretty young man said. After that, the three of them continued to fly. After that, Qin Nan saw the god-slaying storm that covered heaven and earth. He also saw the legendary heaven-burying blood sea that was formed by a drop of the immortal emperor's blood essence, as well as all kinds of incomparably strange and unheard-of phenomena. No wonder it's said that ordinary heavenly venerables can't come here at all. If it weren't for the delicate and pretty young man leading the way, with just me and Brother Tian, I'm afraid there would be endless trouble. The slightest carelessness would cause us to die. Qin Nan thought to himself as he looked at the delicate and pretty young man's gaze. He also became slightly more pleasing to the eye. Although this guy was a bit deceitful, there was no need to mention his ability. After a day and a night, the delicate and pretty young man suddenly stopped and said with a somewhat excited tone, "We're here. The Great Development Sacred Palace is in front of us." Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list looked ahead with a trace of shock in their hearts. They only saw that the vast sky was dyed golden, making it impossible to see the stars in the sky. In the depths of the light, the outline of an ancient palace was faintly discernible, emitting an incomparably sacred aura, as if it was immortal. It was a mortal looking up at a heavenly palace. This was a very grand scene. Under this, Qin Nan and the other two were like insignificant ants. "How do we go in?" The spirit of the celestial pole list was eager and a little impatient. "Hee, everything is simple once we're here. As long as we fly towards the palace, we will be sucked into the Great Development Sacred Palace," the delicate and pretty young man said, and took the lead to fly forward. Qin Nan and the other two immediately followed. The sky was filled with golden light, like an endless sea. The three of them flew for a full hour, but the ancient palace was still like a heavenly palace. It was incomparably far away from them, and they could not see it clearly at all. Suddenly, the three of them heard a crisp sound in their hearts. Three vast and ethereal forces fell on their bodies, causing them to instantly disappear on the spot. Not long after, the three of them found themselves in a brand new place. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list raised their heads as they sensed something. Their eyes immediately flickered with astonishment. It was still night, but the myriad worlds star diagram had completely disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a total of 999 incomparably dazzling stars. They were like ordinary stars that had been enlarged over 10,000 times, like the sun and the moon. Qin Nan and the other two could faintly see the blurry figures of deities sitting with their legs crossed on each of the stars. This is the heavenly development thousand-star pattern. The first immortal emperor of the Great Development Heavenly Sect collected hundreds of peerless martial emperors and refined it with the force of more than 1,000 great worlds in order to repay the Great Development Heavenly Sect's kindness. It's one of the heirloom artifacts of the Great Development Heavenly Sect. The pattern. It contains endless secrets. If you are talented enough, you will surely learn something from it if you observe it closely, or even. The delicate young man spoke tirelessly. When he reached the end, he noticed something and turned his head to look. He saw the spirit of the celestial pole list emitting wisps of clear air as it sat down cross-legged, exuding a great sense of holiness. Qin Nan stared at the pattern. His eyes flickered as he performed an ancient hand seal. The handsome young man curled his lips as he looked at the spirit of the heavens pole leaderboard. He could not help but sigh emotionally as he said, "If this person really has that kind of physique, then there will be another bloody storm in the myriad worlds." Chapter 2501. The handsome young man ignored the two of them and looked up at the sky as well. Mysterious runes surged out from the bottom of his eyes and underwent a series of changes. His current state was completely different from Qin Nan and the young man. He didn't seem to be comprehending anything from the diagram. Instead, he seemed to be using some kind of heaven-defying eye technique to peek at the diagram. All the mysteries of the diagram. After about 2 hours, he withdrew his gaze and muttered to himself, "It's still a little difficult." Then, he looked at Qin Nan and the young man and snapped, "How long are you going to comprehend it for?" Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list immediately broke free from that mysterious feeling and instantly realized what had happened. They were somewhat amazed. In that short moment of comprehension, they felt as if their bodies had been baptized by endless starlight. Their bodies had become stronger and their consciousness had become stronger. If they were allowed to continue comprehending it, they would definitely be able to obtain some kind of supreme technique from the diagram. However, that would be a waste of time. After all, the supreme inheritance and various opportunities of the Grand Development Sacred Hall were more important. "Where do we go now?" the spirit of the celestial pole list asked. Along the way, I finally have the chance to show you my ability." The handsome young man rubbed his hands and then waved his hand. He took out 5 blood-stained tortoiseshell and said proudly, "How is it? How are these treasures?" Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list used their eye techniques at the same time and carefully sized them up for a while. Then, they looked at each other and didn't say anything. No matter how they looked at them, these 5 tortoiseshell looked like ordinary tortoiseshell. "Damn, you two don't even recognize these? These are the tortoiseshell of the flawless destiny tortoise. There are definitely less than 100 tortoiseshell of this tortoise in the entire universe. Moreover, most of them have been taken away by the top forces," the handsome young man said unhappily. He originally wanted to show off, but who knew that the two of them were completely blind? All right, stop blowing your own trumpet. Hurry up and run it. If we can really find the supreme inheritance with these 5 pieces of tortoiseshell, how about I call you little brother?" the spirit of the celestial pole list urged. "Humph, that's what you said. Bah, why do I need you to call me little brother?" The delicate youth glared at him. The two of them bickered for a while more before the delicate young man started to make his move. Both of his hands continuously pushed forward, and strange dragon runes flew out and drilled into the 5 pieces of tortoiseshell. A chaotic aura immediately floated out from the tortoise shell and spread in all directions like fog. Shangxuan, heed my command. Flawless light, pry into the mysteries of heaven. The delicate young man muttered to himself. When Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list saw this, they were a little surprised. They didn't expect the delicate young man to have mastered some kind of powerful deduction technique. If Ji Xian found out about this, his intestines would probably turn green with regret. How could the deduction technique of a person like the delicate young man be simple? All right. The delicate young man's eyes released 2 rays of divine light as he pointed in a direction. Let's go over there. We will definitely find the supreme inheritance. The 3 of them immediately stopped talking nonsense and quickly flew forward. During the journey, Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list also learned more about the secrets of the Great Development Sacred Hall from the delicate young man. The Great Development Sacred Hall was similar to the Great Development Thousand Star Chart. It was one of the most precious treasures of the Great Development Heavenly Sect. The hall formed a world of its own. If one's cultivation was not above that of a supreme heavenly venerable, one would definitely not be able to see the entire hall clearly. In addition, the world formed by the hall was different from the 18 small worlds in the Great Development World Mountain. This world was filled with a kind of divine qi called the Great Development Qi. If one didn't cultivate the Great Development Heavenly Sex technique, after inhaling it for a long time, one would explode. One's body would explode and turn into bones. Also, the hall was even more dangerous than the 3rd-level mountain. It could be said that it was filled with danger at every step. If a heavenly venerable who had not reached the state of knowledge came here, it would definitely be a dead end. Even heavenly venerables who had reached the state of knowledge had to grasp many things. Cards were used to deal with situations. Otherwise, it would be a narrow escape. Wait. Suddenly, the delicate young man waved his hand and said, "There's something strange there." In front of them was an ancient forest. However, this forest seemed to have encountered a great calamity. Countless towering trees were cut down, and their branches and leaves fell to the ground. The originally vibrant life force had turned into the current silence. They had seen many situations like this along the way. Qin Nan really couldn't see anything strange about this place. It is indeed a little strange. The remnant martial will here is still incomparably condensed. The great battle that happened in this forest shouldn't have happened long ago, at most 4 hours. Could it be that someone else entered before us? Heaven's Pole asked. The spirit of the ranking carefully observed for a while and said. A strange look flashed across the delicate young man's eyes. Then, he slowly said, "You're right. Someone did come in before us. It should be those geniuses from the major factions," Qin Nan said. He didn't find it strange. There were so many geniuses who came to Xuanji this time. It was normal for someone to come to the Great Development Sacred Hall first. It's almost impossible. The delicate young man shook his head and said, "It must be someone else who came." Qin Nan was stunned. He couldn't help but ask, how so? Besides the geniuses of those great powers, who else would be able to arrive here so quickly? The delicate and pretty young man glanced at him and said angrily, "Do you think everyone is like you, casually entering an ancient god's tomb and being able to obtain the location map of the Grand Development Sacred Hall? Even those geniuses from the major factions have to spend a lot of time to get here. Only then can they find the complete map. Oh right. You probably don't know. Every time Xuanji opens, the location of the Great Development Sacred Hall will change. If we want to find the Great Development Sacred Palace, we'll have to obtain the map from the Profound Mysteries. Although many of the maps in Xuanji may have existed long ago, every time the location of the Great Development Sacred Hall changes, it will affect those that haven't been found yet. The map will become a new, correct map." Qin Nan was shocked. He only now understood how precious the ancient map he had obtained was. If it's not those geniuses, then who could it be? The spirit of the celestial pole list asked. There are only two possibilities to be able to enter the Great Development Sacred Hall so quickly. One is that they have incredible luck and picked up a map as soon as they entered Xuanji. It's almost impossible. The other possibility is that a descendant of the Great Development Heavenly Sect has come. Chapter 2502. Qin Nan's heart skipped a beat and he said, I got this map from the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect. The handsome young man nodded and said, That's normal. When the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect was destroyed, they didn't want the Great Evolution inheritance to cease to exist. Therefore, they left behind many maps, waiting for the fated ones. Compared to other cultivators, the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect have more advantages. The later generations had a unique advantage, and could easily find the map. If they encounter trouble along the way, they'll find a way to continue passing down the map. However, that's not the point. The handsome young man emphasized, the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect also have strong and weak bloodlines. For example, compared to the descendants of the Inner Disciples and Outer Disciples, the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect's Sect Master, Supreme Elder, and Elder have more advantages in the Great Evolution world. They have a lot more advantages in the World Mountain. If the descendants of the Great Evolution Heavenly Sect have stronger bloodlines and more prominent ancestors, it'll be very troublesome for us to obtain the inheritance. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list understood. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's hurry over. Maybe they've already found the place of inheritance. The three of them quickly turned into streams of light and flew forward. Then, they found many traces of fighting, all of which happened within 2 to 4 hours. At the same time, they also encountered many dangers. It was worth mentioning that Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list wanted to see the handsome young man's strength. When they encountered danger many times, the two of them tacitly retreated and blocked the handsome young man in front of them. However, the handsome young man used a strange footwork technique every time, easily moving far away, forcing the two of them into danger and forcing them to attack. After failing 4 or 5 times, Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list had to give up the idea. If the handsome young man was unwilling to attack, then no one could force them. Time passed, and after 10 hours, Qin Nan and the other two stopped in their track. In the distant horizon, a brilliant red light appeared. A faintly discernible ancient aura drifted over from the front. The appearance of a phenomenon, the red light is shining. Up ahead is the land of inheritance. The three of them increased their speed. After about 100 breaths of time, they immediately saw a bright red light under the starry sky. It was like a sacred flame of the heavens and earth, slowly burning. In this light, the outline of a mountain that was shaped like a halberd was faintly discernible. Faintly, one could see countless pitch-black water gushing down from the peak of the mountain. Like a waterfall from hell, it rushed down and landed on a blurry palace at the foot of the mountain. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were both slightly shaken. All of this was clearly silent, but in their hearts, they seemed to hear the sound of a waterfall rushing down, as well as a vague murmur. The heavenly mountain hangs in the sky, and the river Styx falls. Could this be the place of inheritance left behind by the 9 firmament immortal emperor? There was a hint of excitement in the young man's tone. The 9 firmament immortal emperor? One of the 10 great immortal emperors of the Great Evolution Heaven sect? Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were astounded. They did not expect to stumble into such a shocking succession. That's right, he's one of the 10 great immortal emperors of the Great Evolution Heaven sect. Besides, this 9 firmament immortal emperor is the 9th immortal emperor, and he's relatively recent. According to the rumors, the nine-firmament immortal emperor successfully comprehended the immortal Tao from the supreme profound yellow rock. This time, we might be able to find a small piece of the supreme profound yellow rock. The young man's eyes burned passionately. He swallowed his saliva as he recalled the scene of him obtaining the rock. Qin Nan and the spirit of the celestial pole list were startled too. A treasure that allowed an immortal emperor to successfully comprehend the immortal Tao was surely extraordinary. Come, let's go, don't let that guy get ahead of us. The delicate-looking youngster reacted and dashed forward. Qin Nan and the others did not fly for long when they sensed a faint ancient aura coming from the mysterious palace. It felt like their blood had frozen. In addition to that, they also sensed that the illusionary lofty mountain was emitting an invisible aura that had almost suppressed the entire place. Their eye techniques had completely lost their effect, and the range of their divine senses was only 100 meters. However, it did not affect their cultivation. They soon arrived at the empty space in front of the mountain. They also saw more than 30 figures in front of them, who seemed to be waiting for something. Holy crap! Why are there so many people? Is this an illusion? The young man's eyes widened. Qin Nan was astounded too. He was a little suspicious too. Why did he feel like the figures were a little familiar? A bad feeling rose in his heart all of a sudden as a thought crossed his mind. Who's there? At this moment, the cultivators in front of them noticed the three of them. They let out a shout, which then turned into anger. It's the two of you? All the cultivators in front of them turned around in unison. They were young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, Yang Xiaofei, Lan Lai Yener, and the other geniuses. When they saw Qin Nan and the young man, their expressions changed. Their eyes were filled with anger. Anger and killing intent. The geniuses did not expect to stumble into these two thieves at such a time. It's you guys? The young man was surprised. He then smiled brightly and said, I didn't expect to meet my good friends here. God is really kind to me. Judging from his expression, it seemed like he was really close to young Master Zhenli and the others. They were like brothers. My good friends. The anger and killing intent in the eyes of young Master Zhenli, Yan Danqing, and the others became even more intense. Yan Danqing even shouted, Die! Swoosh! 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 These geniuses all released their shocking auras. They turned into streaks of light and rushed toward Qin Nan and the others. They were like a terrifying army. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.